We have a
Recording in
call to
progress.
order. Commissioner Malik, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. City Planner, would you like to call roll?
Certainly, Vice Chair Morrissey. Chair Rosales indicated he would be absent today. Vice Chair Morrissey.
Here.
Commissioner Balma.
Present.
Commissioner Anthony.
Here.
Commissioner Dodds indicated he'd be absent today. Commissioner Ogden.
Here.
And Commissioner Malik.
Present.
Please let the record show that 5 commissioners are present and we have a quorum.
Do we have any communication on matters not on the agenda?
Yes, Vice Chair Morrissey, we do have one speaker. Would you like me to continue?
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we have, pardon me. Actually, Vice Morrissey, excuse me, Kevin Higgins. If you would please step forward, you'll have 3 minutes to speak on the non-agendized item this evening.
I don't see Mr. Higgins, so we'll go on to the next item. Can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes for the prior meeting?
A motion we approve.
We'll speak into the microphone.
Can you hear us now?
Do we have a second?
Yes, a second.
Commissioner Anthony seconded. Can we have a vote, please?
Let the record show that the motion passes 3-0 with Commissioners Balma and Morrissey abstaining.
Okay, I see no matters on the consent calendar, no matters on the transportation items, so we're going to get right to the public hearings. Just so you know, if you're here for item 5, that meeting is going to be postponed till the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. So if you're here, we don't want you to sit through this. So the only item we have is item 4. And before I call for disclosures, I'm going to recuse myself, and Commissioner Baum is going to run the meeting.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a thank you or not, though. This is a good meeting tonight. I'm really impressed with all of the turnout tonight, and I think this is nice to see community support. And in whichever side you're on, it's great to see you out here. All right, so for the first item of tonight's agenda, and the only item, is consideration of the Municipal Code Amendment, amending Chapter 24 of the Municipal Code to restrict non-hosted short-term rentals within the city's coastal zone and local coastal amendment, established and amended text as part of the implementing document of the local coastal program. So first, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners for disclosures. So we'll start with Commissioner Anthony.
Read the staff report, met with both parties in this case, and also visited the sites.
All right. Commissioner Malik?
Same.
Mr. Ogden? Commissioner Ogden?
Up, top right.
I have had discussions with many different people within the community. I've had discussions pro and con with this. I tried to understand from the layman's term what they wanted to see as well.
Nicely put. I also met with various sides of this issue and also read a lot of emails that were forwarded to us, the staff report. It's been thoroughly covered, I think, on both sides. And now we'll hear from our planner, Sergio, will give us our staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Ballman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Sergio Madera. I'm the city planner for the City of Oceanside and managing the amendments to Municipal Code Chapter 24. Tonight, I'm here to give you a presentation to present staff's recommendations to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to City Council. By way of background, the city first adopted regulations to regulate short-term rentals in 2019. Since that time, the program has been running. In August of last year, the City Council directed staff to preclude additional non-hosted STRs outside of the city's coastal zone. The impetus for that was that by reducing the pressure on the housing inventory, there would be more housing available, or there would be more housing units available for housing instead of being used for short-term rentals. In November 20 of last year, we brought to this commission a proposed amendment to Chapter 24 of the Municipal Code to preclude additional non-hosted STRs outside the city's coastal zone. At that meeting, the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to not recommend that the City Council adopt the proposed amendment. After hearing testimony from the public, which included concerns related to impacts of large STRs on their surroundings, that enforcement of STR rules are not occurring, that the proposed amendments would only increase pressure on the housing inventory in the coastal zone, that Chapter 24 of the Municipal Code should be reviewed in its entirety as a comprehensive STR Municipal Code update, and that the coastal zone should be included in any proposed amendments. The council voted 5-0 to adopt Resolution 2023 P29 with recommendations to council that that council conduct a complete analysis of Municipal Code Chapter 24, including precluding additional STRs citywide and reviewing enforcement mechanisms. It also included a recommendation to ensure regular reporting, inclusive of enforcement complaints, occur on a regular basis to the Planning Commission and the City Council. And finally, it included a recommendation that staff analyze impacts of converting modest homes into 10-plus bedroom homes or commercialized homes. In December 20th of last year, the council adopted a municipal code amendment to preclude additional STRs outside of this, to preclude additional non-hosted STRs outside of the city's coastal zone. They did so by adopting ordinance number 24-OR 844-1. With that adoption of that ordinance, council also provided staff further direction to preclude additional non-hosted STRs within the coastal zone, with the exception of the residential tourist district. The thought was that they would still continue there. Just for a little bit more background, since our last reporting to the Planning Commission, total STRs operating within the city are approximately 1,200. There's about 830 or so located within the city's coastal zone. It should be noted that this includes non-hosted STRs, STRs which are exempt from the requirement to obtain an STR permit, like in gated communities with more than 50 residences like North Coast Village and St. Malo. And it also includes hosted STRs. There's also approximately 378 total STRs outside of the city's coastal zone as of March 15th or so. Tonight, we're proposing proposed amendments to Chapter 24 of the Municipal Code with two options. First option is a staff recommendation. It includes clarifying language with regard to STR application renewal policy that will be proposed a grace period to have, you can renew, if the expiration date comes, you have 30 days from that expiration date to apply for a renewed STR, or you lose the ability to have an STR and you have to go through the process again in certain instances. It also authorizes non-hosted STR permits only west of Coast Highway in all residential zones, subject to a maximum cap of 505 total non-hosted STR permits. This also would allow for some growth in that particular area of town. Currently, there's approximately 455 non-hosted STRs west of Coast Highway, so the 50 would count for a small amount of growth in that sector. Option 1 also includes a prohibition on owners of R1 zoned properties from advertising the availability of an STR unit with more than 5 bedrooms, or renting an STR unit for occupancy for more than 5 bedrooms. 5-bedroom cap would apply to both new permits and existing permits within the R1 zone. Option 2 limits new non-hosted STR permits to units in the RT and subdistrict D4A of the downtown zoning district. New non-hosted STR permits would not be allowed in any other zone within the city. It does not include a total cap for non-hosted STR permits west of Coast Highway, and it does not include a limit on bedroom occupancy for STRs in the R1 zone. It also authorizes renewal of STR permits for units outside of the RT and D4A zones issued before the introduction of the proposed amendment, provided the permit is in good standing. It also allows a purchaser of a unit with a valid STR permit or a unit outside of the RT or D4A zone issued before the introduction of this ordinance to apply for a new STR permit. However, those STR permits or units east of the Coast Highway within the coastal zone cannot be transferred to a new owner. Common to both options being presented to the Planning Commission are the following provisions. One would be to remove the tenant's ability to serve as a host within a hosted STR. Currently, the ordinance allows a tenant of a unit to rent their home as a hosted STR. This would remove that ability. There's approximately 4 of them in town right now. It also it introduces a definition for the term non-hosted STR and requires owners of all units, whether hosted or non-hosted, to obtain an STR permit, which includes on-site STR inspections. It clarifies that STR permit obtained after the introduction of the ordinance would not be eligible for renewal following Coastal Commission certification of the local coastal plan amendment if permit exceeds the cap. So as an example, if we go beyond the 505 proposed cap, then anything beyond that, the 506th permit could not be renewed after certification by the Coastal Commission. It also would prohibit STR operators from advertising occupancy greater than what is authorized by the municipal code, which currently is two guests per bedroom plus 2. So as an example, if you have a 5-bedroom home, that would be 10 guests plus 2, so 12 maximum for overnight accommodations. It also specifies that no amplified or reproduced sound or any other disturbing, excessive, or offensive noise shall be audible from property line of STR between the hours of 10 p.m. and 10 a.m., and at all other times, the noise shall comply with the limitations set forth in Municipal Code Section 38.17. And it specifies that STR permit identification numbers as issued by the city shall be displayed on the hosting platform that advertises said STR. Finally, there's some increased penalties associated with the proposed amendments. It includes that the code enforcement officer does not have to issue a warning. It could go straight to issuing an administrative citation. For violations that pose a threat to public safety and health, there's a new schedule of fees, of penalties that would be applicable, and this is in line with what state law allows. It also calls for civil penalties for operating a STR without a valid permit or a revoked permit that are subject to enhanced fees, $1,500 for the first violation, $2,500 for the second and subsequent violation. It includes a provision within an 18-month period of ineligibility of owners who receive a second or subsequent violation for operating without a valid permit. And it provides language giving the city manager authority to promulgate and administer regulations to implement Chapter 24. Brief analysis on the proposed staff recommendation. So the cap number and location of additional non-hosted STRs. So currently, of the non-hosted STRs operating in the coastal zone, there's 470 of them. 455 of those are located west of Coast Highway. So staff is proposing a cap of 505 non-hosted STRs west of Coast Highway. These will only be, the cap is only applicable to non-hosted STRs. So if you have an STR permit that's an exempt permit, that would continue to be allowed to operate regardless of these provisions. Or if you have a hosted unit, that doesn't count towards the cap. It's only for non-hosted STRs. And the additional 50 represents modest growth and also accounts for attrition of STRs outside of the identified area. With respect to bedroom occupancy, the graphic on the screen depicts the R1 zone and all the existing STRs, whether they're hosted, non-hosted, or exempt. Of all those depicted, 33 are non-hosted. 4 of those have 10 or more bedrooms. 1 of them has 9 bedrooms, and 2 of them have 6 bedrooms. So option 1 includes a provision that STR permits can be capped at 5 bedrooms for non-hosted STRs in the R1 zone. Existing STRs with more than 5 bedrooms can be renewed, but would be limited to the occupancy limit associated with 5 bedrooms, the 12 maximum total overnight guests. In addition to those options presented, the staff is going to be working on enhanced enforcement penalties. These include better promotion of the 24/7 STR hotline. So if you call that number at any time of the day or night, you'll get a live person and you can file a complaint. And that's an existing service that exists today that perhaps not a lot of people know about. So we're going to do a better job at promoting that. We're also going to promote the implementation of services like Noise Aware, which actively monitors, measures, and identifies locations or activities where noise levels exceed policy limits. Staff intends, or the city intends on adding a new code enforcement officer position, follow the planned update to the current STR fee schedule, and an improved coordination between OPD and the code enforcement division. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission choose option 1 for recommendation to the City Council by adopting Resolution 2024-P05. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
Thank you, Sergio. Let me go to my fellow commissioners. Does anybody have any questions for the staff? And I also have to apologize. I don't have the button, that shows who wants to talk. So you just kind of put your hand up, and we'll kind of do it that way. Does anybody have any questions for staff before we get into the community? No? I have one question, I guess. In the existing R1 zone where most of this applies, so if you have, you pointed out there's some 10 bedrooms, some 6 bedrooms, 9 bedroom. This would not be allowed any longer if we choose option 1 tonight. What would those properties have to do in order to comply?
So thank you for your question, Commissioner Ballmer. It's a good point of clarification. So those properties could still be eligible for an STR permit. You just couldn't advertise it for occupancy of more than 5 bedrooms. So even though you have 10 bedrooms, you can only have the maximum occupancy of 5 for 5 bedrooms. So 12 persons maximum. Those found in violation would be subject to the fees and the penalties described earlier in the presentation.
Just to add to that, wouldn't, if I owned a 10-bedroom and I can no longer rent to my capacity, could I then pull a building permit and have it revised, like the unit revised to maybe have a 5-bedroom and two bedrooms and a 1-bedroom?
So the R1 zone, thank you for the question, Commissioner Ball. The R1 zone only allows 1 unit per lot. If you choose to do more than 1 unit per lot, then you would be subject to a restriction where you couldn't utilize the property as an STR, because you would be adding a unit via some state exemption law like an ADU or an SB9 lot split, where you can have multiple units on 1 lot, but those units wouldn't be eligible for short-term rental purposes.
Okay, interesting. All right, is that, okay, Commissioner Malik.
Thanks. Sergio, in regard to the fines, seems, from my perspective, a bit draconian in terms of the punitive actions taken to the STR owner when the violator is the existing short-term occupant. Understand we want to be able to enforce code, but the problem does not necessarily stem from the owner if there's a violation. It stems from the current renter or occupant. And so, making somebody responsible for that. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be a system of fines for repeated offenses, but to give code enforcement the authority to not have a warning and have the owner to address the issue and see what they can do to take care of that, to me seems specifically punitive without giving an opportunity for someone to correct an issue. And with the other things that will potentially be in place with the noise restriction, technologies, the other enforcements that are there in terms of noise, et cetera, quiet hours. If there's a complaint, to me, it seems like the root cause of that complaint is the occupant, not the owner. Could be the same, but that's where we've got to stop the issue. Again, if there's a repetition of this, I can understand why where the property owner would want to have, would need to be fined or have some measure to be able to ensure we enforce that. But just a point of perspective from where I sit with how that was written and the ability to have the code enforcement officer simply write a violation without giving a warning and an opportunity to correct. Thanks.
Was that a question or a statement?
It was really a point of, I guess it wasn't
Okay.
really a question.
Right,
It was really
I didn't hear a
perspective on
question
that.
in there, but
yeah.
I did hear.
Okay, so is there any other questions for staff? All right, we're going to go into our public hearing, but because there are so many of you out there, we've been requested that we should go to a 2-minute limit for everybody's presentation. I hope that's going to be okay with everybody, but there's so many, we don't want to be here for too long, right? We do want to hear everybody's opinions. So I guess we will start with a 2-minute presentation from each. You're going to call out names, right?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Commissioner Balna. I don't know why it's... My apologies, this software is giving me trouble again.
Well,
Hang
while
on.
she's finding her software, if you guys, when she does call your names, you're probably going to see a list of people. You can actually kind of stage yourself to kind of keep it moving. And hopefully, if you hear the same thing more than once, you can maybe kind of revise yours or maybe just kind of shorten yours up a little bit. Because, you know, we want to hear new things. We want to hear, like, information that we haven't heard from somebody else. So, all right, thank you. Here we go. So it's
Sorry
Paul.
about the delay.
Good evening. My name is Paul Keller. I'm a part-time resident of Oceanside for about the last 40 years. Since the late 1970s, I've been involved in the commercial real estate investment, development, lending business. And I think as we sit here tonight, the City of Oceanside has really arrived at an inflection point concerning land use and TOT revenue. That's really, in plain English, what this is all about. The city has failed in every allowing mini hotels in residential-only neighborhoods, allowing commercial uses in residentially zoned neighborhoods, destroying neighborhoods for the sake of TOT tax revenue. And by the way, last year in 2023, the TOT revenue for the subject properties tonight was less than $350,000. That's all. Mini hotels should have never been allowed in residential-only neighborhoods. The city's own zoning regulations state that a use must be expressly, affirmatively permitted. And corporate mini hotels clearly are not expressly, affirmatively permitted use. Any reasonable person would say that a business with annual revenues of close to 30 million and almost 100 employees is a commercial business. And a mini hotel is a commercial business. There are 33 of these mini hotel businesses in the R1 and R3 zone that we're talking about tonight, the coastal zone. The staff recommendation to allow another 50 corporate STRs in this neighborhood where there should be 0 is unacceptable, and it's a failure. Staff has given false choices, 2 ineffective options that accurately make the existing problems worse.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
Can I have one more minute, please? Can I please have one more minute? Please?
Yeah, it's a 2-minute timeline.
Look, I think the neighbors
Can you say it
and
in a sentence? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Keller. All right.
please feel free to pre-stage at either lectern. So if the next person, Eric, if you want to stand by, that would be great. Thank you.
So there was a prepared presentation. I don't know where that is, but
Is it this
I'll just give my part. My name's Phil Schneider. My family and I have owned our home in Oceanside for 25 years, and we are full-time residents. I'm the retired CFO of IDEC Pharmaceuticals and the person responsible for bringing what is now the Genentech Roche and Gilead manufacturing facilities to Oceanside as a resident. So we've seen our neighborhood evaporate over the last 5 to 10 years. Corporations have been allowed to move in, and permanent residents have dwindled. When we moved here, everybody was a permanent resident. There's little sense of neighborhood and a place of belonging. On one side of our home, we have an STR that is open 365 days a year. And the other, we have an unlicensed sober living home that houses 15 men that just rotate on a short-term basis. Our bedroom window is on the ocean right next to the STR, and we've been wakened many times by our STR neighbors at night with sounds of talking, smell of cigarette and marijuana smoke, which all blows into our window. You have to realize that these homes are 6 feet apart from each other. And while a resident might make noise, I have a relationship, I can say, hey, what are you doing? And, we can probably resolve that. But I don't know who these people are. And so, so when they wake me up in the middle of the night, what am I going to do? Am I going to call the police on these people? Their guests are probably families having a good time, but they're still out there at 2 in the morning smoking and drinking, and they're talking. And I'm not going to, bother the police with this. So this abuse has affected us so materially that my wife and I are now taking first steps to actually move out of the area after living here so long. So we purchased this home knowing it was an R1 zone and that we could have the protection of the city behind us to make sure that these types of things don't happen. So I would say is that, you guys or the city is choosing tax revenues over the desires of residents to live a peace and quiet existence, as you have promised. So I just please ask you to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
I've been a resident of South Oceanside since 1955, and in the past decade, like others here, I've witnessed the constant
Mr. Haskell, if I
degradation.
may interrupt you for a moment, I apologize. Are you part of the group that wanted to give a group presentation?
I'm part of this.
There was 4 members identified that it was just told in my ear that wanted to give a group presentation. Are you part of that group?
My name came up, so I came up. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I was just going to clarify for the record, those 4 folks are going to go at the end of the public comment period. So if you see your name listed and you're part of that concerted effort to give this presentation, then please wait till the very end of the public comments, and then we'll accommodate your 10 minutes. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Lay back.
Start
You got
over.
1955 in there.
Hold on, start. Okay, are you ready? Okay.
So, our neighborhood has been degraded over the past decade. These corporate-owned short-term rental houses are no longer homes with families residing in them. Rather, they are overbooked human filing cabinets for partygoers. Basically, from Thursday to Saturday or Sunday, and all week long during the summer months, neighbors must endure the racket of endless party noise and the constant coming and going of individuals who are not part of the neighborhood. Furthermore, there's little parking remaining for the homeowners, and the streets are littered with beer bottles and other unmentionables inappropriate to be uttered in this city hall chamber. For each permit issued to the absentee owners of these properties, you are systematically stripping the area of its long-standing neighborhood sense of place where families resided in peace and harmony for many, many decades. In doing so, you replace the peace with an unwelcome corporate vibe, totally out of sync with the precinct's rich history that fostered a safe environment in which families could grow and thrive. For these very families, you have absconded with the right granted to them when they initially purchased their homes in this residential-only zone. I ask, is this fair? Is Oceanside going to allow for the wholesale desecration of its city's neighborhoods? Is corporate greed going to win over personal rights? Is our city going to allow this when so many cities south of us have recognized the urgency of this important issue and have dealt with it in favor of preserving neighborhoods? This evening, we are here to urge you to make the right and fair decision, which means enforcing the residential-only zoning of this neighborhood. Why? Because houses should be homes, and neighborhoods are for neighbors.
Do we have our next speaker? Shauna Schindler, is that you're part of the group? No. Okay, all right, so now it's Bob Fink. Is he also part of the group? Okay, and then there's Julia Shriver. Okay, then it's Julia Shriver. There you are, good. All right.
Good evening, and public and staff. My name is Julia Shriver. I am a family-run and owned business, and we've been here 70 years. And the reason why we've been here so long is because of all of you. We would not be here if it was just B's. We're here because of residents, and I am dealing with third and fourth generations. So I'm asking that you think about that. You think about our neighbors and our neighborhoods, and not the TOTs all the time. Think about the noise levels and the traffic and what neighbors have to go through when you have an Airbnb right next to you. There's nowhere to park. And who's going to vote? Renters can't vote here, only residents. Thank you.
Okay, is it Patricia? Is that who's trying to come up? Okay, so Louise is next then. God, Louise, is it another Louise in this world? I can't believe it.
Two of us.
Thank you for being Louise. No.
All right, good evening, members of the Planning Commission and my neighbors and other attendees. A few weeks back, my neighbors applauded the City Council for taking steps to protect one of Oceanside's most precious and waning resources, the sand. Today, we ask that you, the Planning Commission, protect another precious and waning resource, our R1 residential neighborhood, our very own Oceanside community. We rely on your support to protect our residential neighborhood from corporate short-term rental operators and commercialized homes who jeopardize our precious resource and our neighborhood community. My family lives in the R1 zone on Pacific Street, and for years we've enjoyed the neighborhood, the community where neighbors look out for neighbors. I've rented my home as a short-term rental, paid my TOT, and I support short-term rentals for individual homeowners. And as an individual homeowner, I care about what's going on in my neighborhood, whereas someone who owns multiple properties may have a different focus, like maximizing rental throughput and short-term rental income. We ask that you protect our R1 neighborhood by curbing the corporate short-term rental operators. In the R1 zone, allow one short-term rental per Oceanside resident. This allows residents full use of their property without inviting corporate investors whose interests don't align with our community. The City of Oceanside has stepped up to protect our precious resource, the sand. And tonight, I ask that you protect our single-family residential neighborhood from corporate rental investors. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin McKenzie. I'm a voter and homeowner in South Oceanside. We are focused on STRs in the residential-only R1 neighborhoods, only, not all of Oceanside. We asked the city directly for TOT revenue information for known STRs in the R1 zone, and we're told that in 2023, the TOT revenue from those STRs totaled $323,000. That's only 2% of the city's $16 million total TOT revenue. Therefore, it is not true that closing corporate STRs in the R1 zone will deprive Oceanside of significant TOT revenue, especially because visitors to those STRs very likely will just stay in the RT zone or in Oceanside hotels. There are currently up to 35 corporate STRs in the R1 zone. The city staff recommends allowing another 50. Look at the map to see the continued destruction of our coastal residential-only neighborhoods, which the city staff recommends. The reason why city staff recommends another 50 is not what they state in the report, that they listen to our community, and there'll be more on that later. It is because the recently enacted ban on STRs in the non-coastal zone is expected to lead to the decrease in STR revenues over time as houses are sold and converted back to residential use. And the city staff proposes to cover this shortfall by increasing corporate STRs in residential-only neighborhoods. If the city can't manage its fiscal affairs, it cannot sell out its residents-only neighborhoods to close this gap. Oceanside has been a residential coastal community for over a century. Every other coastal city is restricting STRs because the residents, their constituency, don't want them in their neighborhoods. Why is Oceanside marching in a completely different direction against the will of its residents, its constituency? Don't pit Oceanside neighbor against neighbor by restricting STRs in the non-coastal zone, but then creating more in the residential-only neighbors in the coastal zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a reminder, you can pre-stage. Both lecterns are operational.
Good evening, folks. I'm an outsider looking in, and as an
Can
outsider,
you give us your name first before you start?
yes, I
It's
apologize.
part of the deal.
I apologize. My name is Daniel Bryan Ness, Sr., and I read this article in the Reader, and as soon as I read this article, it grabbed my attention because I saw the same thing that most of these people here are seeing. You know, the people of Oceanside, they want to make it a residential place. They don't want to turn it into a party site because now what you're going to do is if corporate moves in, they're going to turn it into a site where it's going to be high risk. There's going to be the beaches where it's at. It's going to be overran. It's going to be overran with whatever the type of people that are coming in there. My concern is like, what kind of people are coming in? Like, are we doing background checks on these people? I mean, because ultimately, you know, if you give the citizens, you know, what they ultimately want, then you're only one-sided. I'm unbiased on this because I'm trying to look at both sides. I know that the mayor, you know, he was talking about, you know, the 50. That's a lot. I'm looking at this chart that Kevin had presented right here, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot. This is a big deal. Like, because now you have all these red ones. Look like the red ones are all on the prime. You know, it's kind of like lopsided. But also, the important thing that I think is like the residency and the limitations of the occupancy on these places. The first proposal that the mayor said, yeah, I agree with that. That proposal is like the more sound one. Also, like I said, they're not spread out. They're not spread out and distributed through certain liberties, and the only thing that I'm concerned about is that the residents, you know, stick with like the 3 to 4 bedroom, because it's 10. You're raising it 6 more. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Ness.
Good evening. My name is Seth Evanson. Oh, sorry. Thank you. My name is Seth Evanson. I live on Eaton Street with my wife and 2 children. I purchased and moved my family from Los Angeles to South Oceanside in 2018 to enjoy that laid-back beach town city. Over the past few years, Oceanside has gone through tremendous change: new restaurants, new shops, new hotels, and continued investment, which continues to create the ultimate and ideal beach town. Over the past few years, on my walks along the path down Pacific Street, I have noticed a significant shift in the homes. What once was a quiet neighborhood where you recognize the same folks on their walks or grabbing a coffee at Buccaneer Cafe is now becoming a mix of party houses, cleaning crews, and transient visitors. The short-term rental signs are everywhere. We have completely lost that neighborhood feel, and it only took a few years. I'm not as comfortable allowing my kids to go on bike rides and allowing them to go unaccompanied through the neighborhood as I once enjoyed. I bought my home as a place to raise my family, but more and more I feel like I'm a home amongst hotel operators. All up and down the coast, other cities are protecting their residential neighborhoods. LA County just last week banned anyone who owns more than one STR. In May, San Diego just instituted a one-for-one policy, one permit for every natural person. I don't know why the staff has prevented this information from being shared with the Planning Commission. Oceanside is deeply out of step with its residents by recommending another 50 homes be bought and made into STRs and continued operation of mini hotels in residential-only neighborhoods. The Planning Commission is only being shown the STR lobby position, which is more mini hotels and more money. My hope is that the Planning Commission will rethink this issue and this predatory practice at the expense of its residents. Thank you for your time.
I'm Matt Caulfield. I'm a 40-year resident of Oceanside. The staff report disregards the City Council's direction and proposes modifications to current policies, which exacerbates rather than mends the failed SDR policy it sets out to correct. It is a classic example of reinforcing failure. The justification of extensive public comments flies in the face of a recent poll of 400 registered voters in Oceanside. 73% oppose unhosted STRs. Canvassing of about 500 residents indicates 80 to 100% in opposition. Actual long-term residents, not visitors and our STR-connected businesses, overwhelmingly oppose unhosted STRs. It's simply incredulous that a staff study, which is directed to ban STRs, proposes an increase of 50 additional STRs in the coastal zone and a laundry list of elements without an analysis of benefits or costs. Element 5 prohibits occupancy as more than 5 bedrooms. It is more of the same unenforceable policies that are the root of the problem. To imply that 1,200 STRs can be managed with one additional enforcement officer is delusional, if not dishonest. As for best practices in other cities, several coastal cities in San Diego prohibit or restrict unhosted STRs, including Imperial Beach, Del Mar, Coronado, San Clemente, Newport Beach, and Santa Monica. Precedents can be found across the country and in at least 21 California cities, including absolute bans in Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Santa Monica, among others. Why is Oceanside marching in the opposite direction? It makes no sense, unless TOT tax revenue is worth ruining our cherished neighborhood and abandoning our finest long-term residents.
All right, Jane, thanks for being up to the podium. I try to follow Jane's example of kind of staging yourself. She did a good job.
Up here, yeah. Hi, everyone. Jane Marshall, 35-year resident, active volunteer, as many of you know, and also a 10-year STR owner and operator. So this is where my comments come from. One, I request that you consider and approve the council's direction to limit non-resident owner-hosted STRs in the RT zone. Why? Because non-resident owners generally ignore the good neighbor policy. There are a few around my neighborhood that even my guests complain about. Because the RT zone was planned for greater occupancy and use than the surrounding residential zoned neighborhoods, and limiting the non-hosted STRs to RT zone is a continuation of what council already approved. So it's just going to be a little bit easier. In fact, it's going to be the easiest to enforce, which has been the root cause problem. 2, enforcement is the key, not more regulations. I mean, I can appreciate the work that staff did to do all that, but adding more when already it can't be enforced is not a good idea. Let's enforce our current policies first. Why? Non-hosted STRs without on-site owners are typically 80 to 90% of the complaint problems that you're hearing all tonight. Changes need to address this root cause. to add a bunch of new restrictions on top of the current unenforced regulations will not solve any of the unhosted STR negligence. Staff's one recommendation to increase speeds for violations is only good if it enforces 24/7 on-site enforcement, not call somebody that, generally doesn't show up until maybe ever. So all I'm asking is consider and recommend the short-term rental unhosted to be excluded to the RT zone and to enact the enforcement that's already on the books instead of overcomplicating it. Thank you.
So Tricia, you could be at the other podium, wherever Tricia is.
I'm sorry? You want me to go over there?
Pat, but I'm just saying, we're trying to get more people to come up faster.
Do you want me to go over here?
No, you're fine, Pat, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just was trying to get Tricia out of her seat. Anyway, sorry, Pat.
I'm Pat Caulfield, and good evening, all of you on the commission, sorry. I'm here this evening to talk about the differences between hotels and STRs. And I am going to use as an example our two new beautiful hotels in downtown Oceanside, the Seabird and Mission Pacific. When a tourist comes to Oceanside and they check into one of these hotels, they are first given parking. Then the hotel provides 24 management. Then the hotel provides 24 security. The hotel also provides the public in Oceanside with many things. First of all, they have a large space that can be used for conventions or just for large gatherings. They have restaurants. The public is invited to join their spas. They also do another very big thing in Oceanside. The two hotels hire about 500 people, and they are paid, and they are also given benefits such as health care and workman's comp. Now, let's compare this to the STRs. The STRs that undercut our hotels. Our city provides them with their parking. Our city provides them with their security because it is the responsibility of the city to enforce the codes. Our city provides them with the police service that the police try to keep the safety of our communities, of our neighborhoods, from these loud people that have been drinking a lot.
Pat, your time's up, but you were very well spoken, but I have to cut you off.
I was going to tell you my most important point.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Lewis. I was raised in Oceanside, graduate of El Camino High School. I'd like to talk about the cost of STRs. During the pandemic in Los Angeles, STRs were used all over the city as party houses that often get out of control. Fights would break out, guns brandished. When the LAPD responded, they wouldn't arrive in one squad car. It was too dangerous. They'd arrive in 10, 12 squad cars, body armor, weapons out. I can only imagine how costly this was to the city. Add to that to the cost of to the neighborhoods where the STDs were located. STRs, sorry. Okay, that was a big mistake. My understanding is that Oceanside is in favor of the STRs because of the TOT they bring in. I believe this is short-sighted. There are many ways to increase the tax base. Cities across the country are competing to attract young people. Why? Because there is no greater resource, no greater source of revenue than young people. who participate in the economy, raise families, and pay taxes. LA has a program that helps first-time home buyers with down payments. Alabama offers young people cash bonuses, as do many other states. Many cities are fighting STRs like ours, and they see that there is an increased difficulty among young people to find housing because the STRs increase housing cost. While this is true, I believe we should view young people as a resource. Oceanside should join the competition to attract young people. If we need to increase the tax base, we should be investing in their future instead of destroying a neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, the first pro-STR speaker to speak. Let's break the ice, guys. All right, guys. My name's Nick Foster. I own House Stay Vacation Rentals, headquartered here in Oceanside over in Rancho Del Oro. I manage 60 vacation rentals, 10 of which are in the city of Oceanside. I'm just going to talk on a few points here because I only got 2 minutes. The first really important thing I liked of Sergio's report was how much feedback he received from the community. He got 154 pieces of feedback, right? 152 pieces of that feedback, 99% were pro-STR. Only two pieces of the feedback were anti-STR, although there's a different, breakdown right now in the room. But the point being that the majority of the people are pro-STR. I also like how we just heard about Seabird Hotel. So the Seabird Hotel is $400 per night. Not everybody can afford that. The great thing about STRs is they are affordable accommodations. I have an oceanfront home on South Pacific where you can rent a bedroom for $100 per night. $100 for one bedroom in that room, compared to $400 for a Seabird. So STRs are affordable accommodations in the city of Oceanside. And I got a little bit of time left, so a few other points. Commissioner Malik, when he said the fees are draconian, he nailed it. $1,500 for a no warning fee is ridiculous. If anyone's a small business owner, and all of a sudden you get a $1,500 fee with no chance to cure, no chance to fix it, that's absurd, that's insane. In comparison, that's 15 times higher, the fees that Carlsbad charge and Solana Beach charges, 5 times higher than the charges of City of San Diego. So where that number came up with, I saw an attorney letter from the opposition that came up with something similar to that, but it's crazy, it's absurd. The only final minutes, the cap, there's no logic behind it. Let the real estate market do as the real estate market does. If people aren't doing well in the STR, they're gonna get out. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim. I've lived on South Pacific Street for 35 years, and I love the changes I see. I have no problem with the STRs. They make good neighbors. They are why I can now get on my bike and ride to great restaurants in Oceanside. STRs have improved Oceanside dramatically. A supermajority of owners in the R1 zone have sent you letters. They don't want any changes. Staff has reported to you there are no issues with the STRs. Oceanside Police Department has reported to you and given you the reports. There are no issues. I can't help but believe the entire reason we're here tonight is that billionaire bullies who live primarily in New York City and vote in New York City have already sued a neighbor. They have sued a neighbor. That's not being neighborly. Why? They wanted to buy his property, and when he said it wasn't for sale, their response was, then I'll sue you. Don't fall prey to their misleading information. There are no mini hotels on South Pacific Street. They are legal, they're 8 and 10 bedroom homes, City of Oceanside planning and building approved. They operate legally. Every home, including the McDermotts, is held in a corporation. That's what their lawyers and their CPAs tell them to protect their wealth. All homes are multi-million-dollar homes on South Pacific Street. It's not affordable housing. STRs allow regular people to get a week at the beach. At issue in the R1 zone are 6 large homes, not hotels, homes. There are no issues. They need to be grandfathered in.
Thank you very much, Kim. All right.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. My name is Adam Fischbach, and I would like to thank you for your time tonight to listen to our input. I'm here to inform you that 37 out of the 55 homeowners in the R1 zone along South Pacific Street oceanfront have signed personal letters supporting the continued operation of short-term rentals under the current city regulations. These homeowners, who make up the supermajority, believe that the existing regulations are sufficient and should not be changed. It takes effort, time, and a willingness to put your personal name and information on these letters, which were all sent to the Planning Commission by email on Friday, March 22nd. 18 of these homes in support of STRs currently operate as STRs. 19 are simply homeowners who do not want further regulation to limit their future ability to operate as an STR. 3 or more are currently operating as STRs, but we were unable to reach them. This only leaves about 10 unreached homeowners and 5 in direct opposition. I hope you take the clear majority's preference and voice into account when deciding on future regulation in the R1 zone along the beachfront of South Pacific that they reside in. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sully Sullivan, and I'm director of the California Short-Term Rental Alliance. And united we stand before you today as a community. We're curious as to why there's a sudden urgency to amend Title 24 of the city's ordinance, especially when we have set record numbers in boosting the city's transient occupancy tax to close to $9 million. And there have been no measurable problems with code enforcement or any of the false accusations that have been thrown around by members of various neighborhood groups. The real story is that McDermott is a billionaire bully, and he bought a $5.7 million compound as a second home, and it's at the end of Pacific, and his wife doesn't feel safe because of the vacation rentals that come in and stay for a week. These people are sketchy and scary to the entitled McDermott. The 88 feet of beachfront isn't enough to keep us riffraff out, us sketchy people. He wanted to buy the lot next door to expand his privatization of his compound and keep us out. And when denied the sale, he went on the warpath, suing the owner of the short-term rental, his wife, his son, his best friend, his partners. Is that neighborly? I don't think so. Is that the problem? Maybe. Or are you the problem? That's it. That's what I got. The whole debacle is just scare tactics. These are not big, bad corporations. Everybody owns their home in a corporation. The whole thing has been a methodical summary execution of David Fischbach without jury or gathering facts. You will be hearing from many of us tonight, and that will be bringing you those facts. You'll find that this neighbor is from Park Avenue, New York, and most of these Karens are non-residents that are helping Pied Piper McDermott push his weight around the city. And that's what needs to be shut down, not STRs. Oh, and I'm not sketchy, I'm from O.
David Fischbach, kind of lost my voice. Thank you, your Planning Commission. I just want to state, and what I have up here is, we have a great city here. We have a great police department. We have a great code enforcement. We have a great planning department. I talked with John McCain, who is in charge. He's the police captain. He handles all the records. Every single call comes into a dispatch center and it has a number. Every one of those has an address, and all the addresses are in STRs. So the police, when they arrive, know it's an STR. Every single one of those incidents are reported to code enforcement, and they're all available public record. The next thing I wanted to put on, recommendation. You can see in 2021 in the coastal zone, there were problems with noise. There were problems with low property. Those have all been cured. Last thing I want to say, I mean, they really have. I want to tell you what we do in the R1 zone now. We have gatekeepers, and they patrol all of Pacific Street from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. We have video surveillance in every one. And we also have noise aware that notifies the guests and us and gatekeepers. We've also been worried about basically a Trojan horse. They can't do a Trojan horse on us, put a big noisy party, and then complain about us. We haven't had any fines, and we don't plan to have any in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, Colleen Balch from South O, and by the way, I don't live on the beach. I'd like to thank staff for all the work they've put into this. I know it's not a fun topic, but I do have some things that I would like to be considered. Why was there an additional 50 short-term rentals added when the council specifically said they didn't want any more? One thing that hasn't been brought up is, are we going to include apartments and condominiums in this? If we start converting apartment buildings into short-term rentals, we are really losing the housing that we need for people with lower incomes. Let's see, items 3 through 5 that were mentioned during the staff meeting should be included in both of the options. There's no reason not to. And why is it important to consider form letters when you, at the last 2 meetings, both council and planning commission, had probably 90% of us in the room that didn't want them or wanted them reformed? The last item I have that I'd like you to consider is the fact that had we stayed with our original zoning, the zoning that the city has had in place since it existed, we wouldn't be looking at these problems. We would have people in the RT zone where they belong. We would have people that own homes where they belong, and they wouldn't be crossing over, and we wouldn't be sitting in this room tonight. So those are some things I'd like you to consider. And also, as I'm closing, because I used to sit on that dais, would the audience please let us get through all of these people and hold your applause to the end of the meeting, because you're wasting time. Everyone wants to get in here and get this business done, but we can't when everybody starts clapping in between every single speaker. And I know we're all really involved in this, but just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Colleen, to try to stop this applause, but it's pretty much hard to do. And people have to wait when they come up to the podium anyway, so the applause kind of is a cheering thing.
Good evening. My name is Matthew France. My wife and I own property on Fire Mountain on Hick Street. We started restoring the property 2 years ago. We wanted to host guests as short-term rental operators and owners. We went to a lot of effort trying to anticipate, what that would look like in terms of our neighbors and in terms of the guests that would be coming to Oceanside. We went to great lengths to talk to our neighbors, to repair things, to try and make it feel safe for everybody involved. We have decibel monitors at the house. They monitor noise levels, and they also monitor how many cell phones, how many IPs come in and out of the property. We do have adequate parking for the people who visit. If it's my family with 3 teenage drivers, or if it's, a family from out of state, it's going to be what it is. There's going to be people coming and going in that house. So I consider myself an ambassador for the City of Oceanside. I take great pride in my property. I always try and fix it up and keep it nice, and I'd love to share it with other people. Thank you.
Commissioners, Joel West, South O residents. As staff mentioned, we are revisiting STRs due to their impact on housing. And 70% of the non-hosted STRs are in the coastal zone, and not just on the beach. There's much that's commendable in option 1 and option 2 from the staff report, including removing the tenant loophole, increased fines and flexibility to assess fines, and a tightening of noise standards. However, I have 2 major concerns. The first is, if you go with the cap of option 1, why allow another 50 STRs? If you allow another 50, you're taking away the demand for building a new 100 to 200 room affordable hotel, one that would encourage tourism without cannibalizing property zone for residential stock. Second, after almost 5 years, we know that violations that are hard to enforce aren't enforced. In particular, there are occupancy limits on the book, but how would you hope to enforce them? Photos taken by neighbors don't count. Code enforcement doesn't tend to work weekends and rarely comes out while an infraction is happening, and I understand they're busy. While the police will notify occupants that there's a noise complaint, they don't and won't go into a building and count noses if there are 20 or 30 people there, and certainly not after everybody's gone to bed. And finally, the greatest STR occupancy is Friday and Saturday nights, when the police have other things to worry about than going out on STR complaints. So the real way to reduce community impact of STRs on housing is to have less STRs. And that is also the way to make more properties available for housing Oceanside residents. This commission is charged with considering matters related to land use planning and development. Tonight's agenda item may be the single most impactful land use question that you consider in 2024. So I ask you carefully to consider the impact upon current and future Oceanside residents. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Pasnick. You may be confused with my blue shirt and my green shirt. I am an Oceanside resident. I have 3 kids, 5 and under. I moved to the Oceanside 5 years ago from Chicago. When we first moved here, we had a townhome. Okay, let's skip all this. I think the policies are pretty great where they're at. I think both sides have great opinions, and I feel like what you showed was actually very valid and reasonable. I think that the current policies, as someone said before, should be fine. Everyone that is grandfathered in is grandfathered in, and certain restrictions should be made for the future. 100% agree with that. I think safety being an issue and STR being the blame for that is completely absurd. I think Oceanside in general has a complete safety issue with our neighborhoods, with our streets, and the way things are run in the city. When we drive our kids to school, we pass by 10 transient homeless camps, which is absurd. It doesn't make it a safe community. So I'm spending my time up here to say that everyone in this room, if they are an Oceanside resident and they want neighbors to be neighbors, should be up here speaking and be at certain city council members that speak about these decisions. Furthermore, the STR that I do have, I scrounged up and I put my life savings into it. I am through and through blood, sweat, and tears for the city, and I treat it with my 4th baby. That's basically my 4th baby. And I feel that Airbnbs are here to stay. When you travel as a family, you want to stay together in a household. You don't want to stay together in a hotel where you're spending $400 a night per night. So I think that there's a reasonable course of action here, and I think that safety is more of an issue. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Hello, you guys. My name is Gary Parker. Not sure if you can see that or not, but I'm a short-term rental owner, unhosted, of 3 houses in 3 different counties. I hear arguments in my place in Big Bear I've had for over 20 years. There's different arguments and fights in Encinitas. And then I have one just east of the highway over by the Goat Hill Golf Course. It's a 5-bedroom. I hear the arguments of 99% of people against the short-term rentals, but the stats from last year from City of Oceanside, there was less than 25 complaints between the coastal, the inland, and the data shows, I hear a lot of neighbors arguing, but is it really data that's being documented? My short-term rental, I would say 75% of the community, the guests that stay there are affiliated with the Marines over at Camp Pendleton, and they're wonderful. They leave 5-star reviews. They're renting for the night. They're not there for the day. They're gone all day long. And if they are gone, if they are there, they're for a short while. They're respectful. I would hate to take that away from them. And Oceanside's been affiliated with Camp Pendleton since you guys had a zip code. And a majority of the individuals that are complaining about short-term rentals, where are they going to be in 10 or 15 years? They're still going to be living here, residents? I think we need to protect the short-term rentals. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Olaf Wagner. In 2020, the pandemic presented an opportunity for my wife and I to move away from rainy Seattle, find sun and surf. And we settled in the lovely city of Encinitas. And we thought this would be our forever home. But then we discovered Oceanside. Oh, we love Oceanside. But we are half empty nesters. So we didn't want to uproot the family again. We said, okay, let's hang out there for now and find a way that my wife and I can move here in the future. So to act on that dream, we took all of our savings and we managed to buy a small one-bedroom condo on South Pacific. And in order to get the finances to work, we decided to rent it out as a short-term rental just for those numbers to work. Now, being one bedroom, our only option, unfortunately, is unhosted. Otherwise, it would be a little bit awkward. And my wife lovingly handpicked all the furnishings, and she's also the one that carefully vets each and every tenant that will stay there throughout these short-term rentals. We also have been to all the restaurants in Oceanside. They are way better than Encinitas. Sorry, Encinitas. So to each of our tenants, we provide a list of the restaurants we recommend that they go to, because we personally go there as often as we can. So this brings us to tonight. We haven't had any complaints thus far. We provide parking for our tenants. We only have one garage. That's where their car must be. And we find it's unfair to be able to tar everybody with the same brush with some of these new regulations. I mean, if something suddenly comes up and I'm in my life and I'm unable to renew my STR at the time, and suddenly, therefore, I'm not subsequently allowed to renew my STR, that feels really unfair and draconian. Similar to the comment on the first violation, I mean, we try to follow everything to the T. Our unit was inspected. We do everything right. But if something were to go wrong and we were hit with an immediate fine, that month, we probably wouldn't be able to make our payment on this unit. So not all SDRs are the same. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bill Biggs. I'm president of the Real Condo Association. We have 10 units, 1401 South Pacific Street. I want to first of all thank the Planning Commission for supporting our policy of 7-day rental limit. You've been instrumental in supporting our policy. I want to support the staff report, except for one thing, and that's allowing 50 more corporate rentals that are destroying our neighborhood. I have rented under our 7-day policy for 25 years. I've only had 25 years. I've only had one rental group that caused a problem by flipping cigarettes off the balcony. Unfortunately, we have one owner who does not follow our policy, who rents for 2 days and 2 nights. And it's party time on weekends when staff are not available to answer our complaint. Finally, I want to say that 2-day STRs are causing a lack of occupancy of motels and hotels that have the staff to handle this kind of problem. We don't. There's no way. The only person during the summer who's regularly there is an elderly lady, and she is intimidated by some of the renters. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for listening to all of us tonight. My name is Lori Morrissey, and I live in Oceanside. Together with my husband, we have lived in Oceanside for 30 years, have a business here, raised our children here, volunteer here, and we plan to stay here. We are a member of the community. We are neighbors with all of you, not just some. In 2014, we purchased a fixer-upper at 1942 South Pacific Street that had been in bankruptcy and sitting empty for 2 years. Never in our wildest dreams did we think we could own a property near the beach. But thanks to the ability of short-term rentals, we were able to make that work. It has been a lot of work and a lot of fun. We've hosted guests from all over the country who primarily looking for a place for their families to gather and spend some time together and reconnect. In fact, we've had several faces in here I recognize, family members who have stayed at our property. In 2019, when they created the new ordinance, I think that was very fair, it was very thoughtful, and I just would like to ask you to consider keeping that as it is.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Baxter Williams, and tonight I'm here to speak to you guys as an Oceanside renter, student, and of course, one of the best surfers you guys have here in the community. I'm here to share my perspective as a young adult, maybe just like some of you guys have in your own homes as residents here in Oceanside. And I just wanted to show that I really love this place and the awesome things that this coastal community has to offer my generation. I live with roommates because, as you could all imagine, it is literally the only way someone at my age is able to stick around here due to the rising home prices. And as well as juggling school and working as many hours as I can, and of course surfing, it's hard to find things that we can afford. As you know, it's in short supply and the demand is extremely, extremely high. These short-term rentals go for extremely high prices, so why would anyone rent to a kid like me? We're trying to keep Oceanside, Oceanside. When we see these corporate short-term rentals gobbling up all the houses and charging a fortune for a weekend, more than I'll be able to afford in a month, it explains why it's impossible for people like me to find housing. I'd like to think that someday I can go from an Oceanside renter to an Oceanside homeowner, and I hope you'll think about how that's gonna happen for me and the next generation of real Oceanside residents as we try to build homes and lives here. The recommendations in front of you just don't cut it. They actually take more homes out of local inventory and turn them into high-priced mini hotels. What message is the Oceanside City sending to people who actually want to live here, be part of our community, and build families in the place that we love so much? Thank you.
I'm Jeff McDermott, if you could please look at this, because I think it's very important. The city staff was directed by a 5-0 city council vote to come back with a change in the STR ordinance, which stopped new STRs in the zones outside RT. That's what they were directed. The city staff wrote in their memo that they received substantial input from the community and instead ignored the city council and decided to recommend option 1, which would allow 50 more STRs in the residential-only neighborhoods. First, this is false. The city staff did not listen to our community. They took a VRBO robo-letter and failed to tell you that 134 out of 142 are not residents. So you know that 94% thing? It's vacationer. It's people who don't live here who come here. Of course, these out-of-town STR renters would like 100% of our homes in Oceanside to be STRs. Secondly, what does this have to do with what the city staff was asked to do? STRs are legally permissible in the RT zone. They're not going to go away. These 134 vacationers can stay in RT. The robo-letter is not the voice of our community. This is the voice of our community. We did a poll of 400 Oceanside residents, people who live here. This was last week. We'll give it to staff. And this is what we found. 60% said they want the city council to restrict STRs. 20% said no. But when we asked a simpler question, would you like having an STR next to you? 73% said no. So I just really take issue with this, we listened to our community, because this is what the community is saying. Even more troubling, the staff report contains the email from the STR lobbyist who basically proposes the 5-bedroom limit. So that which was basically adopted wholesale by the city staff came from the STR lobbying allowance. And they mentioned the 2 biggest operators as being supportive. Why? Because they have double wide lots. They're going to basically put 5 on each lot, and they're still going to have 10-bedroom mini hotels. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trevor Artigel. I am here representing CP Vacation Rentals. We are a very small, Oceanside-operated short-term vacation rental business. I just kind of want to speak towards the amount of jobs that the short-term vacation rental industry provides to the city, from our vendors to the businesses that we partner with and promote, to the cleaning companies. Everyone we use in our vacation rental business. We operate 39 vacation rentals along the coastline side, are all local businesses. We're bringing all of that support into the community. If you drive by any single one of our properties, there's no party houses. I've been operating short-term vacation rentals for the last 5 years here in Oceanside. Our properties are peaceful, they're quiet, they provide affordable accommodations compared to the big hotels for families to come and enjoy the beach and have accessibility where they might not otherwise be able to. And I think it's important that we kind of revisit and look at the STRs. I am all for putting restrictions and controls on what's going on with the vacation rentals, but let the good players stay. And if you got to punish the bad players, then punish the bad players. But the good operators who are here just trying to build the community up and provide the housing that everybody deserves, the short-term vacation rental housing, then I think we should be allowed to stay.
Is Angela here? I don't see Angela. So then we have Nancy then. Hi.
Hi, I'm Nancy McCoy. I just have very brief comments. My parents bought our home on Pacific on the coast in 1975. So we have been a short-term rental for almost 50 years now. We have never had a problem. I have interacted with a lot of the guests over the last, well, not all 50 years, but, you know, when I grew up a little bit. And I can tell you that the people who come and have rented our home have been families with kids and thoroughly look forward to their week at the beach on the coast. My concern about restricting short-term rentals is that if you don't have them on the coast, then only rich people get to enjoy the coast. That's my main concern. My mother passed away 2 years ago at the age of 91 and enjoyed the home up that entire time until she passed away. We are probably, as siblings, going to have to sell our home in the next couple of years. My main concern is if there is a restriction, and I don't totally understand everything that's proposed for someone in my situation, but if there is a restriction and any new purchaser cannot have our home as a short-term rental anymore, then the only person who's going to purchase our home is going to be some uber wealthy person. That doesn't seem fair to me. Everyone deserves to enjoy the coast, and that's what they've been doing in our house for 50 years very successfully. So thank you all for your time.
Hello, my name is Ty Kaler. I've been a South O resident for over 20 years, and I've had to deal with a lot of short-term rentals adjacent to me on both sides of our family's property in South O. And I want to remind the Planning Commission, the staff report has offered 2 options, but you are appointed by council to make up your own mind. So there is a third option. Please do what you see is best for our community. I have personally filed over 150 complaints. I only have 3 minutes, so I can't go through all of them. But what I'd like to say is that there is a problem with the party house activity, particularly the large party house operators. However, there are many good operators, and we don't want to hurt them, but we have to go after the party house business model. There is one thing I'd like the Planning Commission to really look at is the recommendation for the cap structure. Note that it's just arbitrary. It's all the current operators plus 10%. That is nonsensical. That has no bearing on community, what our community structure is like and our community character and so forth. Perhaps a percentage based on housing stock or something, but to grandfather the bad actors and everybody rewards them, and that's a mistake. So you got to see what you're doing with that cap. It's a very difficult thing. And finally, I like to just make a general comment is where are the hotels? Where are the hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts? I'm in the RT zone. I welcome anybody to be a legitimate hotelier. I challenge, please ask staff, is there one hotel, motel, or bed and breakfast in the RT zone? And the reason is because incentives matter. Everybody's converting single-family residences, condos, apartments into illegal commercial hotel operations. This has to stop. I have a single-family residence in the RT zone. Every single-family residence from Whaley to Wisconsin is subject to R1 regulations and restrictions. What happens in R1 happens in RT. You guys got a problem. You got a problem.
My name is Tor Stensrud, and our family has been in a residential single-family home in an R1 zone for 50 years. The residents founded our Association of Concerned Beachfront Homeowners of South Pacific Street in 1999. Our association has both R1 and RT residential home, and I stress residential home. Many of you know and have worked with us. Here is a January 10th, 2006 code violation submission. I again say January 10th, 2006. It had to do with an illegal 1933 South Pacific address. And by the way, that is a Fishbach-owned property, board control. Here's another letter we submitted in to the November Planning Commission, which you all read, and we thank you for that, and what followed in the December council meeting. We also thank you for that. As stated in the ordinance, LCP certified, the city should enforce the treatment of RT residential homes as the same as residential R1s. That is the ordinance, that is the law now. Don't dump in the RT only. Dump everywhere if you're going to dump anywhere. Thank you. I gave you 58 seconds.
Thanks, Thor.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Rebecca Crockett, and I've been a STR owner and operator since 2007. So I have a kind of a perspective experience here. I'm going to just bring up a few things that I haven't heard because a lot of things have been covered. First of all, I am a woman, small business owner. I did some data analysis with both Airbnb and VRBO, and the vast majority of business owners in Southern California of short-term rentals are women. And also keep in mind that all the people that we hire, the small businesses that we do hire, from house cleaning to maintenance to home repairs and construction, are vastly minority-owned businesses. So please know that the decisions that you make tonight are affecting a group of people who have been struggling historically for fair wage. So that's the first thing I want to bring up. Secondly, I own and operate a beautiful home right on the Strand, which we love. Ooh, already. I just wanted to talk a little about the people that we have come, and we are able to offer a beautiful beach experience to a large group of people who normally can't afford to come to the beach. And I just want to read a little excerpt of a note that I just received from a family who's come 7 years in a row at our place. And his name's Pedro. He's from Bakersfield, and he works as a landscaper. His wife works as a housekeeper. This is what they said to me. He said, "Miss Rebecca, thank you for sharing your beautiful home with our family. My granddaughters ask each year when we're going back to our beach house. They think it's ours. Is that okay, Miss Rebecca? Each year, we make our famous tamales in your beautiful kitchen and watch God's sunset. Thank you for sharing our home, your home." I look at these families that I greet and host, and they are diverse, and that's part of what Oceanside is we are a diverse community. And I think that the sharing community has grown, and it's worldwide now, and it's of the future. People are sharing their cars, they're sharing their homes, they're sharing their talents. And any type of restriction could be seen actually as systemic racism, because you are preventing people that have been marginalized by society not to be able to come in and afford properties to vacation.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jody Nakashima, and I own a home, a vacation rental home in Oceanside. It's off of Tremont Street. And I actually was an accidental vacation rental owner. We bought this home with our neighbors. I live in Orange County, and it was my way of getting close to the beach, because we're only 3 blocks from the beach. Living in Orange County, I'm not that close to the beach there. So having this as a vacation rental allows us not only to share it with so many people, and I am I take great pride in keeping the house up clean and up to date, and I take very good care of screening anyone that's going to come to our house. It's a 3-bedroom house, and it's perfect for families such as myself. When my family comes up, I have a daughter and 2 granddaughters, and my husband and I, we love coming to Oceanside. So I just want to encourage you, when the regulations came in, in 2019, I welcome them. I thought they were very fair and balanced. And seeing these additional changes that you're trying to suggest and implement, it just scares me, because it's like a slippery slope. Things can go down very quickly, and that's why I'm here tonight, to express my concern. And please, let's just maintain and take care of the people that are the bad actors, but don't brush all vacation rentals with the same stroke. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ross Burnett. As a dedicated Airbnb owner in our community, I come before you to express my concerns regarding the proposed restrictions on short-term rentals in our coastal and beach areas. I wish to highlight a particular concerning aspect of the proposed restrictions, the unintentional but real impact they may have on racial and economic equity. By limiting short-term rentals, we are inadvertently erecting barriers that disproportionately affect individuals and families from diverse and racial and economic backgrounds. These limitations can be seen as a form of systemic rationing, where access to our beautiful coasts and beaches become a privilege reserved for those who can afford the high prices of traditional hotels or the ownership of beachfront property. This move stands in stark contrast to our community's values and openness and inclusivity. It is imperative that we consider the broader implications of our policies, especially on how they affect access and equity. Our decisions should reflect our commitment to ensuring that Oceanside remains a place where beauty and the bounty of our natural surroundings are available to all, not just a select few. I urge the Council to consider alternative measures that protect our community's interests without compromising on shared values of diversity and inclusivity. As we deliberate on this matter, let us remember that our community is at best when it is open, accessible, and welcome to all. Let us find solutions that uphold these principles, ensuring that Oceanside continues to be a jewel in the California coast that shines brightly for everyone. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marco Gonzalez with Coast Law Group. You know, there are a lot of folks who have vacation rentals in Oceanside, and they are good actors. And one of the problems is that they've been co-opted by the bad actors. If a lot of these folks knew just how poorly some of these vacation rentals were being run, they might actually be taking off their green shirts and saying, I don't want to be a part of that guy's business model. And I say this as someone who's fought that guy since about 2006 in other cities and in Oceanside. What we really need is transparency. We need transparency around beneficial ownership. Every person who owes 10% of an LLC or a corporation that owns a short-term rental in Oceanside, we should know that. We should know that, because if that person's vacation rental has repeated problems, they should have an enforcement against not just that rental, but against their other rentals. And unfortunately, what we've seen is two different types of violations. One is people who build without permits, and two is people who rent repeatedly to folks who don't follow permit conditions. So we need to clap down on that, and that's what the council told you all to do as planning staff and as a planning commission, to come up with a new ordinance that would do that. With respect to enforcement, we need more teeth. We need the bad actors to feel the pain and the good actors to get the benefit of those bad actors going out of business. Their rentals should not be available, and the good actors should reap the benefit of that. There should be no long-term guaranteed right to a short-term vacation rental. It should be a yearly permit that gets re-upped every year, and that can be taken away when you've done the wrong thing. It shouldn't just be that you're ineligible for a short-term rental permit if you operate without a permit. If you repeatedly violate the ordinance, you should be ineligible for a year or 2 years from getting a permit. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't be building mini hotels. We should have low numbers of people in reasonable sized rentals, and we should be protecting the residential nature of these neighborhoods as they've been for decades. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Harper, and I'm a short-term rental operator. My daughter and I are both women that operate them. We have two here in Oceanside, one in South O and one on Pacific Street. And I'm against any new regulations, period. But I want to commend staff on the work that they've done, because it seems like they've really given this some good thought, and a lot of work has gone into it. I hate all the anger and fear-mongering in the room tonight, because it's just so punitive and negative, and STIR's owners aren't like that. We really want to entertain people to come to Oceanside, have a good time, provide affordable places for families, people that want to cook inside. They can't afford a Seabird or Mission Pacific. And I mean, we've hosted workers that have come to work in our city and that just want a place to lay their head. And I do take a little offense about the survey of the 400 people of a city of 172,000. That's not really a good sampling of what a survey should be. And when I did look at the Neighbors for Neighbors, the information was, one of the questions was, are you just punitive and, destroying our cities? And we don't do that. We provide a service for people to come and love our city and enjoy our beaches, because the beaches belong to everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Meffam. I am the owner of the Coastal Project. We manage just over 50 rentals in the Southern California area, and wanted to come here tonight to speak against the new legislation. As a short-term rental operator, I support the existing legislation and would like to move in a direction of continued enforcement of the existing legislation. I represent homeowners in Oceanside as well as other coastal regions that have made significant financial contributions to the areas, improving their homes, and are allowing affordable beach access to non-residents. Every day we get messages from different folks around the country thanking us for allowing them to spend time at the beach and to have affordable beach access. With regards to things like parking that have been brought up earlier in the meeting, there are stricter parking requirements for short-term rentals in the City of Oceanside than there are for residents. Short-term rentals in the City of Oceanside are not allowed to have any occupiable parking spaces blocked. In addition, would like the city to take into account local businesses like myself, as well as other tourism-driven businesses, including restaurants, in their decision in the legislation. Thank you.
My name is Pam Grubbs, and I've been a resident of Oceanside for 27 years and STR host for 8. I am a hosted. I have a hosted, and my husband has Parkinson's, and it allows me to be near him, and it's our major source of income now. And so I'll be honest, I am for restrictions, but when everything's said and done, I just don't want, to ever have anything happen to host it. But I also, an interesting thing, I don't want to repeat anything, but when people said not many police have been called, I can understand that because I've had neighbors that have had parties, and I called one time, and the police came to my house, and then the next day my tires were slashed, and so I don't call the police anymore, but there have been numerous summer nights where I've had to close our windows. We don't have air conditioning. We live in lovely Oceanside, but I have to close my windows because I don't want the sound and the marijuana and all that coming in either. So I just want to say I am for enforcing regulations. Thank you so much.
My name is Jared Gustafson. I'm a full-time resident of Oceanside and have been for the last 15 years. I love this city. Thank you to the commission. Thank you to the planning commission. Thank you to the code enforcement for all your part in the current rules and enforcement. The current rules do work. I run a short-term rental and I set very stringent rules on the property and actively enforce them, talking to my neighbors and former neighbors that I've had on a regular basis to make sure that everything is being abided, because I do want to have a good experience for my neighbors, as well as to be able to invite people to visit Oceanside that would not necessarily have the opportunity to do that. Short-term rentals allow people, especially families, to visit Oceanside and maintain strong family ties, not being closed off by arbitrary doors within hotels. So being able to have strong family ties and share meals together is one of the great things about short-term rentals. And the coastal zone is not really affordable housing. So unless you're talking about short-term rentals, that's what provides the affordable housing for these people to visit. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Apologize if I'm a little late to the game and not having read all the regulations and whatnot, but I'll just start with, I didn't know STRs were a problem until I moved next door to one. So I'm Doug Smith. I live in South Oceanside, and the house next to me is a double. So it's a house with the STR permit, and its ADU has an STR permit, and they're both non-hosted. And it sleeps around 15, so it's perfect for family reunions, which is normally what we get on the weekends. The comment reference of a mini hotel, that's perfect description of what it's like on the weekend. The comment that all renters are not rambunctious is also true. The comment that most of the problems with complaints would be with non-hosted is absolutely true. And having a double unit next to me, I can tell you when one of the units is rented, it's quiet. And when both are occupied by the same group, it's very noisy. And I don't call and complain. I follow the rules. I contact the owner and say, hey, these guys are noisy. And he installed Noise Aware like a year and a half ago in response to one of my concerns. And I'm not sure what Noise Aware is good for, because if the city's code is 55 decibels, its average is 65 to 70 when they got a family reunion going on. So I'm not sure what the purpose of the Noise Aware was. Certainly it's not enforced at 55 decibels. I'll try to finish here. I invested $10,000 this last year in air conditioning, so no longer do I have my windows open in the night to enjoy the breezes off the ocean. I have to keep them closed. And we replaced a wood fence with a concrete wall. But nonetheless, what I'd like to see is the elimination of non-hosted STRs, including east of the coastal zone. Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Good evening to the commission, and first of all, thank you for all your hard work during these changing times. I understand it's difficult to navigate. My name is Paul. I'm a board member of the California Short-Term Rental Alliance and a long-term resident of Oceanside, and I'd actually like to consider myself a permanent resident here. I fell in love with hosting friends and family events at a young age. I was just a kid. That's really how I found my love of hosting short-term rentals. Over the past 10 years, I've welcomed tourists from over 32 countries from around the world here in Oceanside who have sought out short-term rental accommodations specifically that I've provided to them, and they've loved coming here to Oceanside, Oceanside's hospitality, and the unique culture that short-term rental brings for those guests. Recently, a guest from Maryland visited. He stayed after seeing that we were proud to offer locally roasted vigilante coffee, which has its roots in Maryland. If you're not aware, they're actually from Maryland. So he came here to stay at my short-term rental because I carried the vigilante coffee. My accommodations offered him exactly what they needed for their week-long getaway: an affordable, comfortable, private, full of amenities. Him and his family were jazzed, and these were his words. His family was jazzed to stay and be welcomed with the vigilante gift card while here celebrating their 40th birthday. As a host, hearing guest excitement is what makes us most proud and makes me believe that Oceanside must continue offering these experiences to family and friends around the world. Thank you.
Is Lauren Peck one of the last to no, Lauren? Cindy? Oh, are you Lauren? Okay, you're going to give it to Kimberly. Okay, so then we have Cindy. Is it? Oh, you're Cindy. Okay, so then Alexandria. Beautiful name.
I'm Alexandria McIntosh.
How do you do?
I had a presentation this evening, but as I've been listening, I've been taking notes and changing. So one of the things, Sergio and members of the commission, I brought some video on March 11th of 2024 at 3:44 p.m. My elderly gardener, in front of 805 Wisconsin was attacked, held at knife point, and robbed. He has worked for me for 18 years. OPD has yet to return my call, and I give this to the city planning and commissioners so you can see what I was able to catch on. Detectives haven't called me back yet. So Sergio, when you say we need to work with law enforcement, this has been reported. That is the video I sent to them because they won't speak to me because I'm not the victim. I happen to have a short-term rental at 805 Wisconsin, and I literally just had people arrive. And I thank God they didn't see what happened to my Rogelio. Now, I don't know what people are talking about, that short-term rentals are not making money in Oceanside. I got this off of the Oceanside website to show the TOT revenue. 11 million, 14 million. We pay for police. We pay for fire. We pay for city planning. We pay for a lot of things. Go after the bad actors, but we're not all bad actors. I have had my short-term rental for more than a decade, and I was harassed by a former member of the city council who's no longer on the city council. And a part of the reason being is because the people of Oceanside voted him out after the news media showed what he was doing to me. I don't know what anyone's talking about, that they've lived here all these years and Oceanside is perfection. I came here in 1981, and the Strand was filled with gangs and drugs and rapes and attacks on a regular basis. The gentrified people who have come into Oceanside now, the $7 million man for one, wants to stop the short-term rentals. I totally agree with everything as far as the rules go in 2019. I think that some of these proposals are a bridge too far. If you want to stop corporate, that's one thing. But the list of people...
You can't share time, I'm sorry. But Alexandria, thank you so much. You had some great points.
Thank you very much. One other thing, All the neighbors on Wisconsin, we're all checking our videos, see what happened to my Recusal.
I hope
because
that-
the police have done nothing yet.
I hope you keep on that.
We will.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mark War. I'm a resident of Oceanside, and I am also an owner of On the Sand Vacations. We manage approximately 100 vacation rentals here in Oceanside, and so I felt it was appropriate for me to stand tonight. We've been doing this for over 25 years. It's a second-generation business, and last year alone contributed almost $500,000 to the TOT and OTMD taxes. So. Over the 25 years that we've managed properties here in Oceanside, I am not aware of one complaint that has hit the city, with exception to the last month, which I felt was somewhat suspicious that it was happening at this time when this is coming up. And the complaint was that there was child trafficking going on in one of our properties. When I spoke to Oceanside PD, they were very suspicious because of the way the details came about that this was even a concern. And within the hour, we had confirmed that it was just a family here for a soccer tournament. What I want to share is that I appreciate all the work that's went into considering how to take care of the residents of Oceanside, being one of them. I don't live in the coastal zone, but I can imagine how there are times that it is very inconvenient to have short-term rentals next door to you. I also understand that sometimes having a neighbor that lives there full time can be very inconvenient, very noisy, very disruptive. And so I think we just have to take into consideration that no matter what the circumstances, there are going to be times where people are not happy with who is next door to them. And I would just encourage you, as you are considering, which, Sergio, I really appreciate all the work that you've put in with these latest regulations to really consider all the players. With us, we consider ourselves a good player. We have not had issues, and we go and meet the neighbors. We give them our phone numbers. I give them my personal cell phone number to say, listen, if you have issues, let us know. And I think it's because we do it the right way that we haven't had any issues. So I would say, please make sure that you're not penalizing those that are good players, especially good players that are unhosted.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm actually Daniel Brunton. I guess Ken not here. Should I go?
Yeah.
I'm Daniel Brunton
Daniel.
of Latham and Watkins here for Neighborhoods Are for Neighbors. And I wanted to address what are Neighborhoods for Neighbors for, because other cities are just banning short-term rentals or getting much closer to banning them. What we're asking for is very targeted and narrow, specifically to address a specific problem. We're not asking for a ban of short-term rentals, not even asking for a ban of short-term rentals in the residential zone. What we want is a ban of corporate owners of multiple party houses in residential neighborhoods. We support the concept of one for one. That's the same thing that the city of San Diego has. County of LA just went to it. You might have seen it in the news recently, where one resident can own one short-term rental. So if you're a homeowner with an existing rental permit, we would support that being grandfathered if you're in good standing, and you could rent your property 365 days of the year. New short-term rentals in the residential area would be able to do 90 days a year. So we say no to corporate owners with multiple mini hotels and party houses in residential zones, and yes to residents and their reasonable use of their own property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Bremer. This is my wife, Debbie. And I would probably consider us part-time residents here. And being able to rent our house out gives us that opportunity. My wife has always wanted to have a place on the beach. Well, how are we going to afford that? So what we decided is we're going to live here half the time, and then the other half the time we're going to rent it out, which we do. We're good owners. We have five parking spots, plenty of parking. Both my neighbors have never complained. You know, we've had tenants that have been in there, and they've actually caught crimes happening in our neighbor's house because they're not there full time, and let us know. We called the police, and they were, helped out. So we've considered ourselves, very good owners, very good renters. Like I said, we've never had a complaint by our neighbors. We've never had a police report on our building, except for when we were doing construction and we kept getting broken into, by transients. That was if we weren't renting out. If you do this right, there shouldn't be a problem. It allows people like us to own property on the beach. We could have never done that, and we're fortunate to be able to do that and being able to rent our house out that allows us to do so.
Thank you. Are you going to also?
So I'm Debbie Bremer. I've never public speak. I'm very, so please bear with me. We have a strong community feeling to Oceanside, even though we do not live here full time. I watch my neighbors' houses when they are not here. They watch our homes. Our guests that have been here, like my husband said, has watched and prevented crimes. We have been very fortunate. When we bought in Oceanside, everyone was saying, oh my God, why'd you buy in Oceanside? I hear it's such a bad place. And it's like, no, this is a great community, and I said, one of the things that drew us was the military base. Our son was in the military. Our son's a police officer. And the ties that we feel here, our guest information book is supporting a lot of the local businesses here. We talk to the police, talk to the fire department. We live on the Strand. I go out walking my dog at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not worried about something happening, So I feel bad for everyone who is saying how their neighbors do not feel like their community, but that's not our case. We are very, very community oriented with our neighbors, and not one person has ever complained to us about our short-term rentals. We don't allow parties. We have that in our contract, so I hope that you guys really consider this. Our house payment and expenses are over $10,000 a month, and this being able to allow to rent our house helps us, and I hope to retire down here when we actually get to retire. And code enforcement has been in our house just recently, but I wanted to tell you real quick about our TOT or STR permit in December was up at the end of the month. I had submitted all the paperwork online, and I kept seeing for like a week straight, pending. So I called the city to find out, and I had a recording, and I left my name and number, and no one called back. And a few days later, I called back again and said, hey, what's going on? And they said, oh, you need to call code enforcement and talk to them. So I had called code enforcement and had left a message for them. And then I got a call back a couple days later, and they said, well, we're not seeing your paperwork submitted. And I had submitted it. So then I called Zach, and we did it again. Well, we were out of town, and so I couldn't be inspected until January. We would have lost our short-term rental permit, and that wasn't fair. I did what was expected. I had my proof that we had submitted everything, and somehow something happened. So for us to lose our permit would not have been a good thing.
I'm glad you got that settled, Debbie.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi, Kimberly.
Thank you for your time, honorable planning commissioners. My name is Kimberly Jackson, and I operate a local and small professional vacation rental firm called Vacation Rentals by Kimberly. Vacation Rentals by Kimberly manages a handful of Oceanside homes for local Oceanside families, many of them your elderly residents that have had their homes for decades. I want to also note that we currently employ 5 of your local Oceanside residents. After reviewing a public information request, code enforcement and the police show next to no violations. So I'm confused as to why this is all happening. If a neighbor has an issue, they need to file a violation so it can be addressed. 3 strikes and a permit should be revoked. Why, if there are so many said issues, have no permits been revoked? Don't cut the handoff that has contributed to almost $8 million in TOT funds to the City of Oceanside in 2023. Punish those that don't comply with city rules. Vacation rentals are written into the Oceanside Community Plan, and the California Coastal Commission's main objective is to allow access to the coastline to the masses. Vacation rentals help achieve that goal. I believe this all came about because of one very wealthy New York City resident that owns a second home here on the beach, maybe a fourth or fifth or sixth home, I don't know. And I'm told that he uses that home only 3 weeks a year. I'm hearing that his neighboring home, an STR, proposed to create a public beach easement to allow public beach access. This wealthy New York Cityer clearly doesn't want to share the beach with local residents. He has now threatened a suit on the STR owner if that STR owner will not sell his home to him. I personally saw a stack of paperwork about this tall. Please don't let a non-local bully change the character of our neighborhoods. Short-term rentals have been here for decades, and they're here to stay. Thank you.
My name is Wyatt Jackson, and my mom's firm, Vacation Rentals by Kimberly, professionally manages a handful of your homes for your local Oceanside residents. Many of those homeowners are here tonight. These vacation rentals here in Oceanside have given 5 of your local residents local jobs with my mom's firm. Please don't take these local residents' jobs away. They depend on these jobs to put food on the table for their families. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Laura Bassett is our last speaker, but we also had some presentation we talked about, right, Sergio? So is that Laura's going to be presenting, or? Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. We can have you come up because even if you haven't, it's okay. We do accept people that haven't filled out the paperwork. Please come up and tell us. You have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
I appreciate that. Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Corey. I own a triplex at 834 South Pacific Street. My wife and I run a few vacation rentals, and we've had 0 complaints. The reason being is we look at the community as stakeholders. So what that means is our neighbors come first. And the way we do that is they all have our phone number, and we offer discounts so their family and friends can come and stay on the holidays, and they've all taken us up on it, and they love having their family right next door but not living with them during the holidays. And we also are using technology. We have 24-hour surveillance live on our phones outside the property. We have noise sensors and smoke sensors inside the property. If they go over a certain decimal, we get an alarm on their phone, and it actually alerts the guest. A small siren goes off in the unit. I think these kinds of technology should be required for all vacation rentals. Also, for our smoke-free zones, outside and inside, because we care about our neighbors. I hate smoke. I don't want my neighbors to smell smoke. We also give a contract that requires them to sign it, give their credit card and their driver's license, and it also is another commitment for them to follow the rules of no smoking and no noise. It has been very effective. So please consider punishing the bad actors who don't care about their neighbors and reward the people like us who want to take care of our neighbors and provide access to a beautiful city like Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Yes, go right ahead. Give us your name. Give us your name. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rosie Raban, and I was born and raised in Oceanside, and I am 19 years old, and considering that I am this age, I find it absolutely childish and ridiculous that we should have to discontinue STRs because of simply noise and different faces. My father and I have been operating our beautiful Airbnbs for 5 years, and our neighbors who are also Oceanside residents have never had any complaints of our STR. We have not had any fines or noise complaints, and that is due to our good neighbor policy and our effective communication towards our renters. Additionally, I am also a college student who needs to be able to go to school and get an education, and without the STRs, my family and I would be in jeopardy of losing both our home and our education. So ladies and gentlemen, if you don't like the cake, don't eat it.
We have another gentleman coming up.
Good evening. My name is Peter. I operate vacation rentals here in Oceanside. I would like to take a moment to commend code enforcement, in particular Officer Barnes, with his professional commitment. I have never felt unfairly treated. I've always received timely responses, and enforcement has always been to the letter of the ordinance, which for me begs the question as to why these wonderful people in the blue shirts don't use the resources available to them. Mr. Stinsroot mentioned a complaint filed in 2006. That was before the first iPhone was launched. Are the blue shirts really expecting to freeze time in 2006? It's also before Amazon was delivering packages. Or are they only victims when there is a microphone and a camera? This is an amazing city, and the ability to share it has helped support local businesses, from eateries to handyman and maid services, helping steer the culture of this beach town into a diverse, modern, and exciting place with a rich history. The thought that someone might dictate what their neighbor can do with their property is the most un-American notion I can imagine. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak besides the presentation before we start the presentation, right? Is there anybody else that wants to speak on a singular level? Looks like we have somebody.
Hi, I'm Ava. You would like the neighborhood to be a neighborhood again? Did you forget about the crime and the delinquency that occurred back then? How pretty was the downtown of Oceanside, and how clean and nice were the beaches before STNR? May I remind you that STNR, you get rankings and reviews, and you know, obviously it looks good amongst the city. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Don't worry about it.
Did you really, sorry. For those in the audience, how many of you go to local businesses here and hope they stay open? Visitors come in and support local businesses all the time to keep your favorite businesses open and your grandchildren happy. If anything, you should be grateful that the city is moving into the right direction. We have people coming in, putting a ton of money into putting the city on the map. We have more homeless walking around amongst us, both residents and visitors who indulge in illegal substances. The people in the audience now are mostly older. Do you think when you were younger and went on vacations, the residents wanted you there? And the audacity to dictate whom owns how and whom and operates how many properties is none of your business. It's just, for most, a way of life and their main source of income. And those who spoke and who live part-time, you don't see how the city used to be, and you are not in here all the time. You know, there's a ton of other things. And I understand the noise complaint and everything's a big issue that will be addressed, but there's always going to be pros and cons of every situation. But you got to look at the whole picture. You want downtown and everything? Okay, I'm done talking.
Thank you. I think is there anybody else that wants to speak before we start this presentation? Okay, go right ahead, Sergio. Looks like someone.
Thank you, Commissioner Balma. The people who signed up to group speak was Bob Fink, Phil Schneider, Shauna Snyder, and Patty Fink. And they all have to be present in the room at the time. They all have to be here for the presentation to occur.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
They're here. Yeah, they're here. Do we have it loaded up? Right.
Okay. Bob Fink.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Planning Commissioners. My name is Bob Fink, and I'm with Neighborhoods for Neighbors, obviously. We are a coalition of neighbors who live, work, and raise our families here in Oceanside, who are opposed to corporations taking over our family neighborhoods. The city's STR ordinance has really been a disaster for our neighborhoods. These mini hotels and party houses blare music all night, leave trash on the street, and clog the streets with cars, and a new party moves in every weekend. We'd like to thank the Planning Commission for its original recommendations to not allow STRs in residential neighborhoods. we ask that you make the same recommendation today and recommend the approval of a modified option 2 in the staff report and remove the grandfathering of the existing STRs outside the RT and downtown zone. This is about R1 residential only. That's what this is about. We're not against STRs. The city council didn't listen, and this has been the result. Corporations are buying up the coast and pushing out families. We are a city that welcomes visitors, but we can't do it by pushing out our residents. My family has lived in Oceanside for decades. My mother-in-law, Rosemary, who spent her retirement years right there at an iconic Oceanside residence, the Mission, working in the Mission gift store. Rosemary moved here in the mid-'80s. My wife and I, Patty, bought a home here on South Freeman in 2006, and today we live on South Pacific. We moved to Oceanside because of its style, its grit, and its culture. The green, the blue, everybody here. That's why we moved here. The authenticity, authentic characteristics that the people of Oceanside established. The residents of Oceanside are what make Oceanside unique and special. Owners, renters, business owners, workers, you, me. One corporation, beachfront only, owns 77 homes in Oceanside as short-term rentals, many in the coastal area. This corporation makes $35 million per year on over 250 rooms that can serve over 600 people per day. They have commercial laundries and teams of housekeepers, and they have an F rating by the Better Business Bureau. This is who the city of Oceanside is being sold out to. Would it be okay for Marriott or Hilton to buy up every home in the coastal zone and rent it as a short-term rental? The current ordinance says yes. We say no. Commercial hotels like beachfront only or Marriott or Hilton belong in our tourist areas, not in family neighborhoods. Again, these are commercial mini hotels, not homes, and they should be treated as hotels. Under the current ordinance, beachfront only buys a home, knocks it down, guts it, and replaces it with a 10-bedroom mini hotel that legally allows an occupancy of 22 people, and 20 guests can visit during the day. That turns these into party houses that disrupt our local neighborhoods that don't have the infrastructure to support them. Take parking. This is South Pacific Street in Cassidy, near where I live. The 3 marked STRs each have a permit to allow 10 bedrooms and 22 people. Let's assume that generates 10 cars and 2 park in the garage. So 8 cars per STR need to park on the street. The result is clogged streets, and then it's from only, and that is from only 3 on the street. That doesn't even account the other 9 in the same area. And that doesn't account for the 20 visitors allowed in each one. Hotels are required to have parking garages that accommodate guests and visitors. Our neighborhoods do not. Hotels are not allowed in residential zones for a reason. Commercial uses like hotels are built to accommodate hundreds of guests and events. Neighborhoods are not. And even in hotel zones, the wild parties hosted at STRs are not allowed. Why is the city putting them in our neighborhoods? The RT and downtown zones allow hotels of all kinds. That is where they belong. Option 2 keeps them there and preserves our family neighborhoods. Recently, Patty and I went door to door from Freeman to the freeway in South O. It's like an episode from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I felt like Larry David. On a Saturday morning to ask for support on restricting STRs, commercially run STRs, in R1 residential only zoned communities. We connected and spoke with 10 people, 9 of whom eagerly signed the petition. Think about those numbers if you're running for office. If we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, it is not unclear what the people want. Do the right thing. It is clear that city staff is trying to raise revenue of the city by recommending 50 new STRs in the coastal zone. But this puts revenue over residents, and we don't think that is fair. Increased enforcement won't work. You've heard that all over tonight from green and blue. The mini hotels are tailor-made for bachelor parties and blowout parties where they don't care about enforcement and will be happy to pay the price of a fine to keep the party going for them. And the owner doesn't care either. He is making $300,000 to $500,000 a year in rent on each STR along the coast. Keep the hotels in the hotel zones and focus the efforts there. We agree with Councilmember Keim that quality of life is more important than revenue. Closing. And by the way, the revenue is small. According to what the city provided us, only $322,000 in TOT money net comes from the RT and downtown zones. $322,000. I'm sorry, R1, apologies. From the R1, $322,000, sorry, is not worth sacrificing family neighborhoods, which is promised in the zoning rules for R1. So that's $322,000, not enough. STRs are already concentrated in the RT and downtown zone. Keep them there. They've bought up those areas, but now they are taking over the residential neighborhoods. There are already 44 STRs. We are at a critical turning point. We need to stop the spread before our neighborhoods are lost forever. It's very close because it is literally on the verge of happening. The existing permits outside the RT and downtown should be allowed to expire and not renewed. This won't hurt city revenue. The existing permits are not vested. And your city attorney, our city attorney, has agreed with this analysis. Our recommendation is for the Planning Commission to recommend that the City Council approve option 2 with a modification to remove the grandfathering provision. Stop the corporate STRs in Oceanside's R1, residential only zones. We bought our home in an R1 zone purposely, and our realtor promoted it, saying, quote, "It's not a commercial zone, therefore no businesses will be nearby," end quote. This is about integrity and reliability. Do Oceanside zoning laws mean anything, or do they not? No one wants to live surrounded by STRs. That's the very purpose of R1 residential only zoning. Please do the right thing. Keep commercial STRs in the RT and downtown part of the coastal zone. Please help us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fink. All right, so is there anybody else out there that just wants to come up and say anything before we close the public speaking section of this hearing? Okay. I guess it comes back to us, fellow commissioners. I'm sure we have comments after those amazing, from both sides. It's been hard to figure out how I feel at this point. I mean, because I came in here maybe thinking some things, and now all of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm on the fence. Because you hear both sides of it, right? The economic benefits of the TOT is like huge, and what the jobs it provides, and in providing people with the access to the beach and coastal, being able to stay at the beach, and the families that come here, it's like overwhelmingly like amazing that that's something we should never take away from someone. But then you hear about the other side of it. But we've heard that there's a lot of code enforcement and police violations, which we haven't really seen when you look at these reports we get. Like, we only get what we get on the dais here, like, and I don't ever see it. So I'm kind of like, okay, I need more, I guess, from our staff. But first, I want to go to my fellow commissioners for your comments. So, Commissioner Ogden. Thank you. All right.
Very interesting conversation. Thank you all for showing up. I think that there's been a lot of misinformation, I mean, from both sides, it looks like. You know, who do you believe? And I understand the emotion of the people that live in South Oceanside that are Zone R1. And I asked the last meeting that why the 4 blocks on South Pacific outside the influence of St. Malo are zoned R1. And the rest of it is zoned RT. It just doesn't seem to make much sense. I don't know why that was done, but we have to live with that, obviously. We should be more consistent. I would like to make a motion to say that maybe we should zone them all RT from R1. That's not going to fly, and that's not very fair to the people that are currently in R1. But I would like to make a motion, but I'd like to have some discussion beforehand of keeping the existing regulations in place and adding some modifications. And I'd like to open that up to the dais of what other commissioners think as well in terms of reasonable. I think that one of the things that I object to is the draconian methods that are in option 1, for example. I just don't think those work very well. I don't think that's the way to control behavior. I never thought it was that way. I think you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So open it up to the rest of the dais.
All right, thank you. Are you in reference to draconian methods to the fee structure? Is that one of the draconian areas you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that. Commissioner Malik.
Thank you. I think it's important to remember, or to have everybody here recognize that as the Planning Commission, we're not a decisioning body. We make recommendations to the City Council. Sometimes they agree with us, sometimes they don't. And it's important that they hear from you as well when this issue does go to City Council. So I think that everybody is passionate about this. There are good points on both sides. We're all one community, and we need to be able to live together. It's very, very important that we do that and that we preserve what's important with our community. To go further with Commissioner Ogden's points, I think maintaining the existing city ordinance, chapter 24, with some recommendations or changes is important. A review of permit with consideration of complaints and violations, as well as a physical inspection so that there's not simply a rubber stamp. And I'm not saying that that is the case right now, but to ensure that we have due diligence for any renewals for any existing STR permits. And if there's anything that needs to be added with more teeth in that, and again, I don't have all the specifics, I think that's something for planning department to take a look at, Sergio. I agree that there's a challenge with the perception of a large house being a party house, but also you have a large home that other organizations can gather peacefully. Is that always the case? Probably not. So we need to figure out how to manage that better, whether that's through enforcement or some other means. Most of these agreements likely state that there shall be no parties. I think it's up to the STR operator to ensure that they enforce it at their end so that it doesn't come down to our code enforcement and our police being the ones that are totally doing that. There's got to be some means to do that, whether that's through a fee or a charge or whatever. Those are things to be looked at to figure out how to mitigate. I think that additionally, any additional STRs should be, if there is to be additional, they should be put in the RT zone exclusively, not in the R1. We've already seen a growth there, and how we deal with that is debatable. Whether they will be grandfathered, they are businesses. Some of them are owned by individuals, so there are some challenges there that we have to deal with. But I think furthering a growth in the R1 is detrimental to all, and it does help. It does more to hurt the community than it does to help. The other piece that I would say is increased code enforcement is required. But why not have the city approve this through the, not just through fines that would be collected, because that's what was my point earlier, that I think that may be a bit draconian. You may be incentivizing unwittingly to have someone put forth fines. The TOT funds that are collected should be enough to ensure that we have an increased method of code enforcement, whether that's additional officers, additional resources, whatever it may be. And I'm not sure what else is there in terms of requirements from code enforcement, but we should have the means through the taxes that we're already collecting to be able to support that and not simply rely on a fine system to do so. To Commissioner Ogden's point, it's definitely, you're gonna get better behavior through doing something in a positive means, vice a negative one that just punishes and doesn't create an environment that we encourage the right level of behavior. Those are the points that I have in terms of how I see this. I don't think that the proposals as written, options 1 and 2 should go forward as written, but I think that with the comments that we have here and any further comments that we have should be maybe an option 3.
Planning commissioners, Commissioner Balma, Commissioner Ogden, Malik, and Anthony, I'd like to provide some clarification with respect to the proposed amendments to section 24.8B. So there's 3 types of fines built into this section of the ordinance. One of them are the administrative citations. So that's like, as an example, if a code enforcement officer goes out there and people are being too loud. With the proposed amendments, rather than just give a warning, the code enforcement officer will have the ability to offer or issue a citation. That citation is $100. That's for the first offense. The second offense would be $200. Third is $500. Fourth is $1,000. So that's an administrative citation. That's what's described here. It doesn't call out the fee schedule in here.
Okay.
The second type of fee being proposed, and this is a new section, comes from the government code, and that has to do with violations of health and safety rules. So as an example, if someone adds a room and didn't get a building permit, didn't get an inspection, that could potentially have health and safety risks. And so those fines are stiffer, and you'll see them, $1,500, $3,000, $5,000. Those are prescribed by state government code. And finally, the last fine that's included in this section is a civil penalty for operating an STR without a valid permit. And those are outlined as proposed, $1,500 for the first offense, $2,500 for the second offense. So it's not like if someone's having a party and they're being too loud, they're going to get a $1,500 fine right away.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah,
Because I think
that's
that that's where we were assuming that this was. So that's very helpful to understand that, and that there should be, and again, it's my perspective, the individual that's committing the violation is not necessarily the STR owner, it's the occupier, the occupant of that property at that time that needs to pay that fee. Maybe both, but it needs to happen. Thanks.
And I had that question as well. So the fee, that fine, is that paid by the occupant or is that paid by the owner?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kirk Mott, Code Enforcement Division Manager. When we would cite an operator, it would be the person who's on the STR permit operating that, whether that's the property owner or the person who facilitates the rental of that property. That's who would receive that fine. Whether they pass that on to the resident, if it was caused by the renter, would be up to them.
Okay. So in my comments, I really, this was very emotional. I have talked to the different groups and talked to people personally, and, you know, I have to look at this in a couple of ways. If I was living in an R1 area and I owned a home on the beach, my family invested in that, I would not want people acting crazy next to me either. I have children, grandchildren, and, you know, I want to make sure that they're safe. On the other hand, if I'm a business owner, person who owns the property, and I have an opportunity to be a business owner by renting out my home, I would like to have that right as well. But both parties got to act right. We have to respect each other. We have to cooperate with each other. And I can see where we can come to common ground, but I believe that the recommendations that Commissioner Ogden and Malik were made here, I agree with them wholeheartedly that we should look again at this, this recommendation, maybe tweak it a little bit before we go forward with it, adding some things and taking out some. And so I believe that that would be the course of action.
I think we're all talking about the R1 zone mainly, primarily, right? That's where the heart of this whole, that's where we're sitting today is because of that. And so in R1, I mean, it seems like we need to do something that's a little bit more extensive there to try to help the neighbors that live there deal with some of this stuff. Like I know that some people have brought up this thing called noise-aware technology and cameras, and then they also have the patrol system that actually does South Pacific now. I think that should be something that maybe we add on in our options, that anybody that does have a short-term rental in the R1 zone has to have something more with how they watch and hear the people in those units, because we don't want to have any further, you know, we don't want to have to always bother code enforcement, but they can kind of police themselves by having the noise-aware technology, which I guess is it's a decibel, and maybe adjust the decibel meter to whatever it needs to be for the city standards and for the neighbors to want to accept. That could be something we could think about. But to just say, and I guess there's already a certain amount of STRs in that R1 zone currently. So how do you deal with that? Do you just say that they just have to go away after a year and so all their investment goes away? Or do you say that they are grandfathered in? That's kind of something where I kind of feel like if we kind of throw some more restrictions on them, that maybe we can kind of keep them at, you know, keep them to be better neighbors if that's what they're not being. But from what we're hearing, they're pretty good neighbors. It's just that people don't want any more. So if we can say, not really limit STRs like by a certain number, because I think the market actually will bear that on its own. Like how many STRs come about is just by who wants to rent them and how many more they can put out for people to rent. So it's almost like we've gone through COVID where it was really hot, and now we're out of COVID and now they're not so hot anymore. So it's kind of like, it kind of goes ebb and flows. So to have a restriction that we have to put on and have to man and have to watch and have to have code enforcement enforce is maybe too much. Maybe we just do it by what the market will bear. But in the R1 zone, we might want to think about something different there. I mean, I don't know. The existing ones, they shouldn't have to be, you know, they've put a lot of significant investment in these homes. I don't think they should be just, after a year, they're gone. But maybe they should have to be limited a little bit further with how they operate. That's kind of what just kind of some ideas.
Commissioner Ballmer, if I could provide some further clarification. With both proposals, neither proposal would require existing STRs in any zone that are being operated in accordance with all rules and regulations. They have the ability to maintain
That's cool.
Their STR permit as long as they go through the normal permitting process. So I hope that clarifies that question, that concern.
So,
but you did have a recommendation that 50 additional.
Yeah.
Commissioner Anthony, yes, in option one, we took the number of existing unhosted STRs west of the 5. That includes many more zones than just the R1 zone. It includes the R3 zone, includes a host of sub-districts of the downtown zoning district. It includes the RT zone. We took the number of existing unhosted STRs, which is 455, and we allocated an additional 50 to allow and to account for attrition of STRs being operated outside of the coastal zone, outside of, that are east of Coast Highway, still potentially in the coastal zone. Those over time would have attrition with property transfers. They wouldn't be allowed to transfer in those areas of the city. So in December, the council adopted an ordinance that basically makes unhosted STRs unpermissible. The existing ones can continue to operate, but when they transfer ownership, they'll no longer be eligible to operate an STR. So that accounts for a fair amount of STRs within the city. So for a little bit of natural attrition associated with those and those other ones within the coastal zone east of Coast Highway, we came up with a number of 50 to account for that natural attrition. And to help alleviate and stabilize revenues that the city does realize. You know, one example where the city is struggling with respect to revenue, and this, I don't want to get too much into it, but there's been a host of hotels approved in the last decade. Many of those hotels haven't come to market because it's very difficult to get financing for a hotel these days. So those are the ideas behind some of the proposals that staff has recommended here in option 1.
Yeah, I think the caveat to that we were making as a recommendation, Sergio, was that with any additional not be done in the R1 zone for the very reasons that we've heard tonight. If we can temper the impact in a residential zone and have further growth in the RT zone, to me, that makes more logical sense in terms of where that growth would logically be and should be based on how they were zoned. How we got there in terms of zoning is neither here nor there. That's where we're at. It's residential. So, and then just maintaining status quo, whatever happens to those happens. I understand, yeah.
Can we make a recommendation? Can I make a recommendation to include what we just discussed with how comfortable you feel implementing that? Can you follow
You certainly can make an alternate recommendation to what's been presented to you tonight, but what we want to do is make sure we capture those ideas clearly and concisely so there's no misinterpretation and when we move it on, the Planning Commission's recommendation on to City Council.
Right.
So if I heard correctly, it would be, well, there's a couple things I heard, and perhaps that's warrants further discussion. The first couple of recommendations from both Commissioner Ogden Malik and Anthony were to basically maintain the existing regulations the way they are. Perhaps taking that further with precluding them for any additional ones in the R1 zone. But we do provide a host of other modifications to this ordinance that really don't have to do with geography, but whether it's more the enforcement. So not where they're allowed to be located, but how we regulate where they are located. We've introduced, as an example, a definition of a non-hosted unit. Right. We've clarified a little bit about the renewal policies.
Right.
I think those clarifications and additional information is helpful because it does. I agree. Yeah.
So I think then perhaps it comes down to how this commission wants to present the recommendations within section 24.6 and the new section D, whether it's continued non-capped in the coastal zone, with the exception of the R1 district, where we would allow the existing ones to be maintained, but no new STR permits in the R1 zone. I haven't heard any discussion on the occupancy from this body, whether you agree with staff's recommendation on limiting the existing STR permits to only allowed to operate with 5 bedrooms or allow it to be the status quo where they can have 10 or 12 or 15 bedroom homes. So that's something perhaps that needs a little bit of clarification.
Well, outside of the RT zone, like where most of them are, I don't think there's a problem with 10 bedrooms because it's usually those units always go for a family, vacation where they all want to be together. So it's kind of a great thing to have this large kind of a unit.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that the question was within the R1 zone, the existing ones that have more than 5 bedrooms, as an example, is the commission okay with those operating at the occupancy limits that are presented by the existing code, which is 2 occupants per bedroom. So an example, the 10-bedroom STR that was pointed to in a couple of the overheads, is that okay for them to continue to operate maximum occupancy of 22 overnight guests?
I feel the existing ones should be allowed to remain, but add the extra restrictions about having the noise alerts, the cameras, the patrol system, so that these neighbors in the R1 have a little bit more protection. That's the way I feel.
One of the other aspects of that, when you look at, is if you've got a cap on the other guests that are there, when you're looking at and I can't remember what the specific numbers are, if you could help with that, that would be
I certainly can. This warrants a point of clarification from the presentation we heard at the end of the public testimony. The presenter made an assertion that the maximum number of daytime guests that's allowed by the existing ordinance is 20. It's actually not 20, it's 10. So as an example, the maximum occupancy you could have during the day at a 10-bedroom STR would be 32 people.
Yeah.
So it's 2 per bedroom plus 2 in addition to 10 daytime guests.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay.
Well, a lot of times on the parking, like from what I've understood, is when you fly in from Illinois to have your family reunion, you get a car or so at the rental, and you come with maybe 1 or 2 cars. Versus if you have, a bunch of different single units, it would be more cars. I mean, I don't think we really have that bad of a parking problem down there.
Well, parking is always a challenge.
Parking is a problem everywhere, people. That's just the way it is. But I'm
Parking
just
is a
saying.
big challenge in South, though. There's no question about that. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge in South.
Anyway, but this is not really a public back and forth right here, but thank you for your input. Anyway, so back to the commission.
Let me attempt to propose what the commission's recommendation would be to the council with respect to the new section 24.6D. It would it still be to limit STRs in the coastal zone to west of Coast Highway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 50 or to a number?
No, just the physical location to west of Coast Highway.
Yes.
Okay, so
I agree with that.
west of Coast Highway would be okay.
Right.
It would be applicable in any zoning district with the exception of the R1 where we wouldn't allow any more.
Right.
And there would be the existing STRs within R1, regardless of capacity, can maintain, they are allowed to operate.
Right.
And those permits could be transferred upon sale of those properties. But the new owner would have to go through the permitting process on their own. And the caveat is that they include some additional monitoring services like,
Right.
and I forgot the name.
Noise alert.
Noise aware.
The video cameras, having the patrol.
So I think what the prudent thing would do to be to refine that planning commission recommendation and circulate it to the commissioners that are present here to make sure that we captured it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, because I know it's kind of a lot of moving parts here. It's a lot to, even with the existing ordinance.
So I would think that the motion would be, if the commission's inclined to make a motion tonight, would be to recommend a third option. We'll call it the planning commission option.
Okay.
Kind of outline what we just described, and the balance of the proposed amendments would be as drafted in both option 1 and 2, the ones that were applicable across the board.
Right.
Does that seem reasonable and accurate?
Yeah.
I'll present that. That will be my motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we will do is draft that language that we described. We will circulate it to the 4 of you, and we will get it back to me, and we'll agree that that's accurate.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can do that in a shared document as well so that we can all see any proposed changes, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, and again, I think for everybody gathered here, we're really trying to support community, hear what everyone's concerns are, and again, we're making a recommendation. It's very important that everybody understand that we're making a recommendation to the city council. So the city council still needs to understand where you stand as well. And they don't always agree with us or listen to us, but we're trying to be, I think, fair, impartial, and ensuring that the needs of the community across the board are met in the best way possible. as well as ensuring that the city staff is supported in their challenging positions to help us all maintain what we need to maintain within our community. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's very well spoken.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that's we all in agreement here, and we got you guys.
So I think just for the record, we
Right.
probably need to formalize that, and you guys have to actually vote on it.
Okay, all right, so Commissioner Ogden came up with the first initial.
Hey, folks, if you're leaving, we're still in session, so if you could please take your conversations outside. It's
you.
okay if you want to leave, but
Yeah, you
please
can.
just don't talk while you
Yep.
leave.
Yep.
Have your discussions outside. Thank you.
All right, so back to Commissioner Ogden. So your initial thing was to keep it as is, but we added a few more caveats, right? So,
Correct.
and you pretty much spoke it pretty well, Sergio, what you just came up with. So I would say that's the motion.
Yep, that's the motion.
And so I think we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second, okay. And so now we can vote.
So let the record show that the motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody, for coming. That was really eye-opening.
Can we start the meeting now?
Yeah, can we start the meeting now? Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we move on to the rest of our calendar here, which isn't too much. Oh, sorry.
I think the vice chair is coming back out.
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner
sorry.
Obama.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I got so excited taking over your job, I just wanted to keep going.
Mr. Morrissey, we didn't miss you a bit.
It was pretty exciting. Did you hear everything?
I did. You guys did great.
I think we did.
Louise, you get the prize for smiling through all this.
Or you saw me or something?
Yes.
Oh, you're kidding.
You guys really, I mean, that was great. That was great.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
I think we
That
kind of
was-
did
that was hard.
good for everybody.
Yeah.
We kind of tried to do a little bit for everybody.
It was good. It was good.
We can't say no anymore.
The bottom line, like you said, Jay, it's like, it's, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't. We're just recommendations.
Please,
All right.
okay. Do we need to take a break? Are you guys good, or let's muscle through it?
Let's go.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, anyway, great job, everybody.
It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, okay. The next item would be appeal of city planner's determination, none. So, Sergio, do you have discussion items on the next meeting, or?
Vice Chair Morrissey, we hadn't planned on it, but there is a requirement that the commission appoint a new chair. And the next meeting will be a good opportunity to do that. So what we will do is put that item on the agenda for the meeting of April 8th.
All right.
April 8th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, April 8th.
So,
Which will probably happen. We'll do it on April 8th.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. You guys did good. You guys. So miscellaneous actions, there's none.
Commissioner reports.
Let's see, commissioner reports. Commissioner
Oh, you want me to go first?
Obama.
All right, well, the only thing I have to report is I and Commissioner Malik attended one of our very own Zell Dwelly's memorial, which she passed away, Beach Break Hotel owner, which I've never been so moved going to someone's memorial as I went to hers. The attendance was probably well over 600 people, and from all walks of the community, city people and normal, all of her whole family, like her pickleballers, her like beach breakers, everybody was there to offer like their heartfelt, feelings about Zell. I mean, she touched everybody. It was all the most moving experience I've ever been to in a memorial. So I just wanted to share with you guys that she was someone that was amazing for Oceanside, and we've lost someone that's amazing like her. Her son's taking over the store, but it's just not the same as Zell and what she did. So anyway, that's all I have to report.
Commissioner Anthony.
As I told you guys before, and you read in the paper, Gilead is leaving Oceanside. It's a little disturbing to me. I have probably a little more insight on it than you all do, but they decided to leave Oceanside. That's like 500 pretty good paying jobs leaving the community. And you've built houses and housing and things like that. And I didn't see much fight come from the city.
No one from economic development or nobody got into
I didn't hear anything, we didn't see anything. I'm going to be out of a job at the end of the year, but that's okay. But
what's their reason for moving?
They wanted to consolidate things in San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco, why would you want to live there?
In San Francisco.
Geez.
Consolidations.
Oh, well, yeah, it's happening all over the place.
Okay, so it's for economic reasons.
But I mean, this is our city. Yeah. This is where, and that 28 acres of land, they still own that. They're just going to fence it up. And so I just thought it was a little sad that
Well, it is sad.
I didn't hear much about that. I didn't see much about it in the press, in the paper, on the news or anything. And so.
That is really sad.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that no one from our economic development department, I mean, Michelle's really like on it usually, that she didn't, that she didn't like jump all over that and say, what's the reason? But then if the decision's made from the top and you're going to incorporate your company, how can you fight for that? How can a city get them to move their other operation back to Oceanside maybe? I don't know.
Right. Well, I know that, they're going to be putting buildings up for sale, so.
Wow.
They'll probably be looking at that here soon, but.
That's huge.
500 employees are here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
501.
I'm sorry you're affected. That's a huge
You're not going to move to San Francisco with the company, huh?
No.
No.
I love Oceanside. I would never move from Oceanside. I'm going to die in Oceanside.
Wow. I love it.
In many years to come, though.
Yeah, way later on. But I just thought that, I'd bring that up. It's just
Good point. Sad point, actually.
Commissioner Malik.
Nothing to report. No, that was at the same Zell's memorial, and I know her son and his business partner as well, and they are doing a great job of taking over. But it is a big loss to the community, and you heard it in here tonight. This is really about community, and in South O especially, it's the best sense of community I've ever had anywhere I've lived, and I've lived in many different places. I've been here on and off for over 35 years, closer to 40, and in South O for the last 14. And it's a great community. And when you lose an icon like that, it's felt hard to replace. And there's a lot of changes that are going on in the community with a lot of large sections of Coast Highway being purchased over the pandemic. Challenging to see what may be coming in terms of development. A lot of things from top down from the state really don't help us maintain our sense of community. One of the reasons why I got involved in this organization was to help preserve what we have as a sense of community. So it's always a challenge for us to ensure that, we can do that. And it would be nice if we could maybe have more interaction with the city council on a quarterly basis to compare notes, because I think that maybe we could create more synergies and maybe help each other in a way that doesn't feel like you're throwing something over the fence.
When I first got involved in the Planning Commission, we did have a city council liaison that sat with us, just like we have, Barbara. There was a city council member there too. And it was kind of nice to have that, because just like what you said, are we going the right way? Are we like, we're doing this kind of as a buffer for them and trying to get them some advice. And so, yeah, we used to have that. I'm not sure why that went away. Maybe everyone got too busy.
And I've mentioned that before, but in the last, realizing what happened with the November and not really knowing what had happened in December, because it's like we're all busy. Do we go to their meetings? Not necessarily, but finding a way to be able to compare notes and understand what's behind some of their direction would be very helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a valid point, but I think that we should all be
No, I agree.
open and very open.
I agree.
I
I agree, and I think the other
that'd be
thing is, oh, it's not my turn to speak, sorry.
No, you're good.
You can do it. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Just one comment. Yeah, I think part of that, and I think you mentioned the loss of those 500 jobs is the Chamber of Commerce. And I know Scott is very active in that, but I think a little bit closer activity with them. And I know that I go to most of the chamber events. We went to meet the city the other night. I usually attend the monthly meetings that they've got, and they're very, very helpful, and I know Scott and his crew is very supportive of the business community here, and we've got a lot to offer, and I hope that we can fill that void here very quickly, so.
Yeah, the chamber event that, they just had, was it last, Mike, was it last?
Yeah, last week.
Last week was amazing. I think that's their best ever, and it was such a good showing of all the Oceanside folks there.
Yeah.
Police and fire and council and Scott, Scott and his crew really do a great job and keeping us informed of what's going on in the city, so.
Yeah. One last comment. So for me personally, I've been in the medical business for a very long period of time, and what's happening at Tri-City with that joint JPA, I don't know if that's been signed yet or not, with the university, which I think is a great marriage, but we're going to lose a lot of the autonomy of Tri-City, and maybe that's a good thing, I don't really know. But one of the things that, from my perspective, is the third largest city in the county of San Diego, losing against obstetrics is unconscionable, and I think that really goes back to leadership as well, and I know that Tri-City is fraught with a lot of issues relating to seismic standards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but hopefully this will be a positive change and get the impetus going to get Tri-City back into what I consider to be a very, very respected medical center.
Well, thank you. That's good stuff. Well, with that said, this meeting is adjourned.
Oh, wait, we have to do Sergio. Hold on.
Oh, sorry. Sergio's the head guy.
Come on.
Forget about Sergio.
I haven't spoken enough today.
You did good, Sergio.
But thank
That
you,
was a toughie.
thank you, planning commissioners. Thanks for your participation tonight. Not an easy topic to discuss, so I really appreciate your input. It's invaluable. I just have a couple items to report on some upcoming planning commission and city council agendas. Now on a meeting of April 8th, we'll ask the Planning Commission to consider the Melrose Senior Housing Mixed-Use Project, which consists of 43 units, approximately 2,500 square feet on an 1.5 acre site on South Melrose Drive where it intersects with Cannon Drive. On a meeting of March...
A question about that real quick.
Sure.
I'm sorry to prolong this, but is there space there for more parking? That's my biggest issue with that thing.
Sure. Maybe that's a question we could answer offline.
We'll take it offline. I just, it's a question that was at the top of my list for that project.
At the meeting on April 22nd, the Planning Commission is going to be asked to consider a regular coastal permit and a variance for a deck that was built without any permits. And what they're finding is that the lot coverage is exceeding the allowable lot coverage. So they're asking for a variance. The subject site's 1842 South Pacific Street. So on that same agenda, there's going to be a conditional use permit for a U-Haul rental at an existing auto repair shop located at the southeast corner of Crouch and Oceanside Boulevard. And finally, a regular coastal permit for a balcony addition at 2016 South Pacific that hasn't been installed yet. Moving on to City Council, going back a little bit, and this is not a project that was considered by this body, but it's probably a project that you would have some interest in. The council approved on March 13th a revised project at 712 Seagaze, which consists of 183 studio apartment units and 3,000 square feet of ground floor commercial. And then moving out to April 10th, the City Council is going to be asked to consider 2 historic permits, one for some work being done at the Lavanderia at the San Luis Rey Mission. They're going to do some signs and some walkway enhancements, some fencing enhancements. And the other historic permits is for a small addition at the Ivy Ranch Equestrian Center, where they provide invaluable service to the community. Yeah. And then finally, this item that you consider tonight is scheduled to be considered by the City Council on their meeting of April 24th. So thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you.
Hey, we adjourned?
You can do your gavel thing now.
This meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you, sir.